I think this is the nature of the vast majority of most conspiracy theories. You have a absolute bottoming out of trust in information bearing, producing, and communicating institutions. We have no reason to trust these institutions now. I'm completely on board with that. And in that lack of trust, you start looking for something that you can grab hold of to understand the world around you because you don't have the tools. You don't have any of the shortcuts or heuristics for making sense of it. And then that there's a bad guy out there who can be blamed. And in this case with COVID, there are bad guys out there to be blamed. The Chinese government would be one. Some of these public health officials that are not being held accountable is another. You start looking for explanations for that and you grab onto some they, and at the very bottom of that pile is always going to be Jews, or somehow, this weirdly successful minority group that's always on top somehow, even though there's 0.2% of the world population. No Joe Rogan, there's not a billion of them. There are 15 million, just a little over that in the world. And somehow they're so rich, they're so powerful, they're so influential. It might be that they study hard, work hard, believe in success in life. I don't know. But no, there must be a conspiracy. And so they arrive at that because when they can blame somebody, they can imagine the problem having a solution. And then they can imagine the problem having a solution. There's like something to hold on to. So psychologically, I think that's why they've taken off. And I think that's why they veered toward anti-Semitism. But just like with the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which were released as a distraction from what the Okhrana itself was actually doing. The Russian secret police were actually doing a lot of very nefarious things, including to Jews, including ghettoizing them and, all kinds of abuses that led to them infamously, in some numbers, not the numbers that are reported falsely online, but in some numbers supporting even the Bolsheviks, 5 to 7% support for the Bolsheviks, much higher support for the Mensheviks, much higher support for the Jewish Bund. But I digress. This stuff that the Okhrana itself was doing was being covered up by saying it was all a deep secret plot by, I guess it's this motion here, by the Jews that were trying to secretly take over the world with their, learned elders of Zion or whatever. And the same thing's happening now, right? We have huge amounts of funding dumping into our universities, into our media apparatuses, into our politicians from Qatar, from other, kind of pan-Arab or Arab League sources. We have lots of influence coming in from this new axis. Again, Iran, Russia, China, Pakistan, North Korea, huge amounts of influence. For example, when at some point early in this war with Iran, one of the internet cables across the sea got cut and part of Pakistan went dark for a number of days on the internet, and the Scottish independence movement, which is fighting against the UK to become independent Scotland again, most of it online vanished when Pakistan was offline because it's not real. It's a Pakistani intelligence operation, or this new axis, as we should call it, operation against Scotland. But this is happening in every Western country, and in America probably the strongest. And if they can get us saying Israel's the problem, then we're not looking at what Qatar's doing, and we're not looking at what Iran's doing, and we're not looking at what Russia's doing. We're not talking about what China's doing. We're talking about, pardon my French, we're talking about bullshit that's been ascribed to Israel. Instead, we're chasing Jews around when we are actually therefore wasting our time and our energy ignoring the actual problem. It's almost just a guarantee at this point that whatever they're saying Israel's doing, you can probably blame one of these Middle Eastern countries or Russia for, or China for, and you're probably correct. If they're Israel's paying a bunch of influencers, no, Russia is. Okay, now next. This is Qatar is. Okay, next. This is almost so transparent. It's one of these things that at this point I don't understand how people don't see it. But the purpose is the same. The Okhrana was doing evil things. They wanted to cover their tracks. They put out a false story that it was the Jews, so people would blame the Jews when their bad activities actually happen. They go out and they mess up a neighborhood, and it was the Jews that arranged it. And now people get mad at the Jews, not at the secret police. And it's the same story now. You come out and you run all these propaganda lines. Israel's paying influencers to say things about JD Vance, and now you're ignoring the fact that almost all of these guys that are saying that have either worked directly with the Russians or have been to Qatar on lavish trips in the past 2 years. And so you're not talking about the real problem. You're not talking about the real lobbying. You're blaming Jews instead. Same mechanism, same purpose. The sad part is that the protocols of the Elders of Zion and this technique were designed to trick illiterate peasants, not designed to trick sophisticated, allegedly first world educated Americans. And I have been personally vastly depressed and psychologically injured watching my countrymen fall for propaganda that's so transparent that was designed for illiterate peasants that it just kills me to watch it happen. But here we are. So that's why. That's the story. It's the same story. Blame Israel, and no one's looking at the real problem. Israel's the distraction. Israel's the wedge. As a matter of fact, my most controversial opinion about all this is this isn't about Israel at all, except for when it's Hamas or Iran or the Houthis or Hezbollah. They care about Israel. They care, in ISIS, they care directly about Israel for their own Islamic reasons. For everybody else in the whole world, this is about using Israel to destroy Western nations. Israel is a means to an end, and they don't care that this hurts Israel or that it hurts Israelis or that it hurts Jews. Some of them think that's maybe a bonus, but this whole operation is designed to damage America, to damage President Trump, to damage the MAGA movement, the conservative movement more broadly, to split evangelicals apart, to shatter Western countries, to gridlock Western parliaments over this issue so that none of them can move, none of them can be effective, and also to distract the American and other Western populations so that they're not pointing at the right problems, which are all being generated by the people that are pushing the propaganda against Jews in the first place. So it's barely about Israel, but Israel is the centerpiece. As I've said before, if you really want to make a man angry, you insult his wife, right? And then you say, well, the guy attacked that guy's wife. No, he didn't. The guy attacked the guy, but he used his wife as the tool. So Israel is, in this metaphor, the wife. You attack the wife as a means of attacking the guy. So here you attack Israel as a means of attacking America. And I think that that's the main thing that's going on. And a lot of people are misunderstanding that.
Well, good evening and welcome to Investigate Everything. I'm Brian O'Shea, your host, late again, and but thanks for joining me. I appreciate you guys all being here. So I didn't really have my normal deep investigative content like I like to have, and I'll be honest with you. It's because every time I turn on X, I get distracted. Why do I get distracted? Because, like James Lindsay there said, and someone I really like, and I've met him a couple times, and he still hasn't followed me, which is annoying, James. But we actually met at a screening for a movie in New York for Shen Yun's documentary. Shen Yun being the China Before Communism based ballet that, of course, is one of the main targets of the Chinese Communist Party. But James is right. And history has shown us this, that Jews, and other groups too, but mainly Jews, have been used, as the scapegoat, normally to distract the citizens of a country by tyrannical leaders or bureaucracies from understanding the real problems that are going. We saw the way Hitler used scapegoating of the Jews to basically give people a target to blame for all of the problems that Germany was having post-World War I, especially economic problems. We saw this with the Tsar of Russia. We saw this with the Romans. As a matter of fact, I wrote something up about this recently, but we can get into that later. And so what I've noticed is what James says is really right. We're seeing the Jews being used to kind of split the right or the conservatives. I don't consider everyone that is splitting to be conservative at all. As the title says, I see the left, the right, and the wrong. Okay, so what is the left? We'll get right into that. The left is, I would call those traditional liberals. People like Bill Clinton, who today would be seen as conservative by today's standards. I see it as, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of Democrats whatsoever. But then you'd see the wrong, and the wrong would be the Democratic Socialists of America or the crazy Marxists far left, the left side of that horseshoe and the horseshoe theory. And then on the right, you have the right, which I consider conservatives, people that put country first, Constitution first. If the Constitution says it, regardless of who's in office, that's the right thing to do. Conservatives basically they don't want to change things until the things we have are running properly, which makes a lot of sense to me. I always liken the left and the right to, learning a musical instrument. A good piano player will learn the scales, master the scales, learn some classical, get some good music theory, get some good academic base in music and piano before they jump over to jazz. Whereas liberals, they tend to like to learn a few chords and jump right over to jazz, even though they don't really understand the way musical composition and pieces are supposed to work, if that makes any sense. And then you have the wrong. Okay, now the wrong in the musical sense would be someone who starts pounding on keys and then lights the piano on fire because they like the sound the strings make as they burn. It's the same thing with the right. The right will start banging on the key on the strings inside the piano, the chords, before they realize that the keys can actually make the music. And they're not interested in making music. They're just interested in hating on the piano. Terrible analogy. And this week I really saw it a lot. Like, things are getting confusing for a lot of people. And even for me, and I'm not saying I'm any smarter than anyone else, but it is getting confusing because so many things going on. We see these split on the right with Israel. Okay, it's split into anti-Israel and pro-Israel, or neutral on Israel. But with the wrong, or the wrong right, if you're not hating on Israel, you're with the pro-Israel crowd. I'm a pro-Israel guy. Okay, and why am I a pro-Israel guy? Because I'm a pro-ally guy, and any ally that supports us the way Israel does and has, they're on the team in my book, plain and simple. Now, people will point to some historical mishaps that the military, where Israel accidentally killed some of our sailors. All of that's on the record. Sure, you could point to those things all you want, but every country, especially in combat or in any large campaign, has killed each other's soldiers. It happens. It's horrible, but it happens. I'm sure we dropped a few bombs on our allies or some artillery during World War II. I don't know, but I would imagine we did with such a gigantic scale of a war. Hello, Autumn. Good to see you. I just always like to include you guys in the show. Good to see you, Autumn Smith. And then, so you have these two factions, but they're both wrong. Okay, you've got the crazy socialist, communist, Marxists, whatever you want to call them, on the left, who literally want to tear it all down. If you go to the DSA's website, if you hear the rhetoric coming out of DSA members on network television, they're on legacy media. They're literally saying they want to get rid of the judicial branch and the executive branch, and they want to get rid of prisons and get rid of the police. I mean, just that's utter chaos and destruction. And that's right out of Marx and later Lenin, was about tearing the system down to rebuild a new utopia, which of course never works. And then on the right, you have this crazy, I would say even habit or instinct, or what's the right word? Basically to believe the most far-fetched, crazy things that you could ever believe, such as where to get started. Anything Candace Owen says, for instance, the Egyptian plains, we've heard it all before. I think now she's saying that woman that sliced the throats of her children, it's not her fault, it's Pharma's fault. That's the latest I heard today. Okay, and then other theories, like, for instance, Emerald Robinson back in March, former friend of mine, used to, she was actually putting out this theory called, she actually had an episode that was called Operation Shabbat Shalom, where she claimed that Jews are trying to recruit Christians by inviting them to Shabbat services, which is weird because every church invites people from all over to their services. And Shabbat services are on Saturday rather than Sunday. Jewish people do not proselytize at all. They don't recruit people into their religion. Actually, they make it extremely difficult if you want to convert, because they want to make sure you want it. Because as they see it, what their people have gone through for thousands of years, you can't just walk in and say, "Yep, I'm Jewish." That's beside the point. But Operation Shabbat Shalom, and of course, Emerald did this on the heels of Tucker Carlson's ridiculous episode that Chabad was some sort of a cult who was trying to build the third temple and expand Israel and was ferreting money to soldiers to make elite inner units just insane stuff. Chabad, by the way, is I usually go to Chabad on Saturdays, and it's kind of like, let me see, I'll just walk you through it. You go to Chabad, they're praying. The men are on one side, the women are on the other because they're Orthodox. That's just traditional, and it's like a office divider. And then they do the Torah reading, and then you sit and have lunch. And in my case, I get always crowded around by the rabbi's kids at the Chabad I like to go to in Brooklyn. And they asked me if I've seen things like Citizen Vigilante was the last question I got, with a big smile on their face. And one of the kids was like, "Hey, do you have a knife?" And I was like, "Yeah, I always have a knife." And he's like, "I got a knife too." I'm like, "Oh, cool, man." What else do we talk about? "Oh, I like your hat," or "That is some really good challah bread," or "How was your week?" These real kind of dark subjects that go with cultish-like behavior. I'm not Jewish, by the way. I just go because I like it. Okay, so there's that, and just these crazy theories like that the wrong right is just addicted to adopting, and the more crazy and ludicrous it is, the more they seem to want to grab onto it. Okay, now what James Lindsay said is right, and it's obvious to anyone with an ounce of common sense in their brain. There's, first of all, the genocide claim. I think it was the son of Hamas, that very passionate speaker, who was actually the son of one of the leaders, if not the founder of Hamas, was saying, at this rate of genocide, it'll take the Jews 550 years to accomplish it, meaning obviously it's not a genocide. It's just ridiculous one-sided reporting. And so it doesn't matter what it is, they will grab onto it. And for some reason, the Jews, everything gets blamed on the Jews. Like literally everything gets blamed on the Jews. And I'm not kidding. There was the Columbia earthquake, I think last week or earlier this week, where I literally found someone 10 tweets in saying it was the Jews, who apparently caused an earthquake. So apparently the Jews are not only these evil people hell-bent on global domination, but apparently they have the same powers as like the X-Men, which is makes me kind of want to join them even more if that was true. But I'm being facetious. The point is, why now? Why are the Jews yet again being blamed on everything? Well, that's obvious. When people don't really have a good reason for blaming a certain group or taking a certain direction with their content, but they're all of a sudden anti this and anti that, anti-Trump, anti-imperialism, whatever imperialism they define, they're usually getting paid. Okay, let me explain that. Take, for instance, a lot of people who were pro-Trump especially influencers, then all of a sudden turned on a dime. Okay, turned on a dime. And then they're anti-Trump and he's breaking his promises and blah, 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 blah. Well, they're only helping the Democrats, and most influencers know what's happening with the Democratic Party. Right before the midterms, is that 1/3 of them now are socialists, actual communists, the Democratic Socialists of America. They call themselves Democratic Socialists. They are communists. Okay, and they largely follow kind of a Lenin / Stalin playbook of, grabbing the levers of power in a government and then taking over an existing party from within. This happened, I talk about it a lot, this happened in 1948 Czechoslovakia. And so people whom we know and we used to listen to, they must know that by encouraging conservatives not to vote in the midterms or convincing them that all is lost, I think Dan Bongino calls them the doomers, people are not going to turn out to vote in the midterms, which would mean the Democratic Party takes over because they have the budget, which means the Democratic Socialists of America take over, who have vowed to pretty much destroy America, okay, and change our entire society and turn it on its head. New York is a great example of this. If you see what's going on in New York City, it's a great example of what these DSA people want to do to the entire country. Okay, the state-owned grocery stores, which leads to more government dependence, which leads to rationing, which leads to control. Now, these pundits know this. They know that will happen. So you got to ask yourself, why are they trying so hard to divide people? And of late, trying so hard to discredit some of the larger influencers on the actual right, such as Dan Bongino, Tim Pool, who's actually a center guy. But these two have both come under incredible fire this week for kind of silly things. Well, no, if you can't find an answer to why they would want to do that, these, wrong right influencers, then, I mean, Occam's razor, man. I mean, for lack of evidence, the most obvious answer is, or the most common sense answer is true, which would mean they're getting paid. Someone's paying them. Okay. And I don't have proof of that. Obviously no one does, but the messaging is all kind of the same and in sync. So if you look at Emerald Robinson, I mean, I hate to say it, but Shannon Joy to some degree, these are both people I would consider friends, or did, and I like Shannon Joy still. We're friends, but, or Tucker Carlson, someone I used to listen to avidly, my wife's been on his show. Who are some of the others? Oh yeah, Redacted News. A lot of these, it's all, nothing is focused on the Arabs. Nothing's focused on the Islamists. Everything is focused on Donald Trump and the Trump administration. They're trying to undermine the right and scatter the right, which means we will lose the midterms, which means we basically lose our country. They must know this. They can't, well, some are pretty stupid, but they're not all that stupid. Okay. I mean, and they must also know that if that happens, they won't have a voice. They will be shut down. They will be investigated. How quickly people forget, 2024 and, the whole Biden administration, censorship galore. My own wife got banned from Twitter for life back then. She's back on, obviously, since Elon Musk took over and we won a lawsuit. But the point is, they must know this. They must know they'll be shut down. They must know that Rumble, for instance, will get investigated and suspended, because that's what the socialists have said they want to do. Hillary Clinton not too long ago was saying that they should hunt down Trump officials, and no matter what level they're at. I mean, the writing is on the wall, and like most people say, when your enemy tells you who they are and what they're going to do, you should believe them. So we're kind of more focused tonight on the far right, or I like to call it the right end of the wrong. MAGA Reich, as some people call them, not my favorite term. Why are they doing it? the only answer I can eliminate is they're getting paid. And that would make sense, because if they know damn well that the amount of censorship that a DSA run DNC led Congress, the amount of censorship that will bring will be unbelievable compared to 2021 till 2024, through 2024. Unbelievable. Okay. And so that's where we're at. And I just want to go through a couple posts tonight that are just, they're blowing my mind. Now, I will say this. There's a guy named Kyle Seraphin. I really have no problem with him. I don't know him personally, but we follow each other. And he seems to really have a problem with the FBI. I understand he worked there. So, I'm actually not including him in a lot of this. I don't agree with really much of what he says, but I don't really have he seems to be focused on one thing. And then there's other people that legitimately are questioning, hey, why is Trump doing this? Why is Trump doing that? For instance, like the flock cameras, don't like those at all. But things I do like, I do like the fact that, hey, we're in the AI race. I do support data centers. I know that's going to sound very unpopular, but here's why. Because I don't want the U.S. to fall behind China in the AI race, because can you imagine a world where we have no AI or we don't control our own data centers when China does? Do you think they're just going to stay in their backyard and AI their own people? Oh, hell no. They've made it clear what they want by 2049. They want to dominate the world. It's called the China Dream. So I do agree with that, but there's a movement afoot that is saying ban data centers, don't build data centers. Now, granted, I think communities need to be part of that process. I think we need to go through our established rules for having community input, like they do at most town hall meetings. I don't think we should pollute the ground and the soil and put the burden of that electricity, which is a lot, on the taxpayer. I think, whoever's building or running the data center should pay for that. But we need it. We do, plain and simple, because if we are not up to par on the AI race, China will be. And then they'll lend that to all their little Belt and Road buddies. And guess what? We'll be the only people who brought a knife to a gunfight. That's just the reality of it. If there were no AI, I'd be happy, but it's here. It's kind of like not owning a gun in a high crime area. Like, if you're against guns, can you imagine? Like, well, I'm not going to own a gun because I'm against guns, but all your neighbors have security systems and guns. You're the only one that doesn't. Guess who gets robbed, probably murdered? You. So that's how I feel about that. And, other things too, like, it seems like anything, I guess I can go into detail, but anything this administration does seems to get more flack from people we used to consider the right than I can see coming from the left. Like, I'm not seeing Alex Jones or Owen Schroyer. I'm not seeing these guys talking about the DSA. I'm not seeing them talk ever about Russia. I'm not seeing them ever talk really much at all about China anymore. I'm just not seeing it. And that's a huge problem to me. There's an op, as a lot of people like to say, I don't like that term, to divide us on the right, because if Congress and the House, and the Senate, God forbid, go to the Democrats, that means it's not the DNC controlling it, it's the DSA. Now, the DSA, if you followed my show, has a lot of influence from hardcore terrorist organizations in South America. I mean, they were formed at a Sao Paulo conference years ago. That was in attendance by, Cuban, Nicaraguan guerrillas, Marxist, like hardcores. And just last October, before Mondami became mayor, the DSA was down being hosted in Cuba in October of 2025, I believe. That's a real problem. That will be running our country. And so I guess the point I'm making is vote your conscience, of course, but vote. Okay. Because if you don't vote, if you buy into the gloom and doom of, oh, it doesn't matter, right? Well, it does matter. We got Trump back in. Okay. So it certainly matters. Okay. But this whole thing going on is driving me nuts. And it is spilling, a lot of people say, well, it's just on X, who cares? Well, no, because what's happening now is it's spilling into mainstream media. So that is keeping any younger voters from ever even considering voting Republican, because they're taking a look at these things, the civil war on the right that the legacy media likes to put out, and they're saying, I don't want anything to do with that. That looks chaotic. And so that's why just stay the course, you have to. Because everyone's like, oh, Trump's going to try to monitor us and control our brains with mRNA and all this. I don't think so. I haven't seen any evidence of that. But, technology advances, technology diffuses. That happens. But can you imagine the DSA with that kind of power? Think about that. Okay, so I got on this really because I've been just on X kind of calling out a lot of BS lately, and it's got me unfollowed by some people that were friends, and I'm using facts. I try not to be an asshole when I do it. But the show's called Investigate Everything, and if someone says something and they're a big influencer and it's patently untrue, I have to say something. So that's where we're at tonight. We're going to talk about we talked about the left. We know who they are. We talked about the right. I consider myself the right, the real right. You too, if you're on this show. And the wrong, and that's all those people who are anti-American, against America. And yes, some call themselves the right, a lot call themselves the left, but there's a lot of people, the flat earthers, the fringe right, if you will, who are wrong. And it's almost like political suicide. I can't understand why they're doing it, except for the fact that I guess they figure cash in now, and it won't matter if they're not allowed to broadcast anymore. That's all I can come up with. Let me get to these comments because they are filling up, man, and that is really great to see everyone. Hello, Autumn Smith. We've already said hello to you. Great to see you. And Autumn, we do got to get you on the show. I know I keep saying it. We got to figure that out. Autumn's doing amazing work. She is a great follow. And I'll put her X profile in the description. Okay, hi Brian. Do you have trouble doing commentary when you're this insanely handsome and masculine? I feel like it distracts from the message. Would you be better off just chopping wood or shooting at the range? Well, I do chop wood and shoot at the range, but thank you. That's a very nice compliment. Destruction is going to happen anyway. U.S. is mystery. But see, this is what I'm talking about here with Josie. Josie, welcome to the show. I'm just not a gloomer and a doomer. Okay, destruction is going to happen anyway. Based on what? What do you base that on? And we're in a position now where you can kind of like avoid destruction if you just don't vote and you throw in the hat like Josie is saying. I think, not to call her out, but you're going to lose. Like if you do nothing, like Braveheart said, you know what happens if you do nothing? Nothing. Okay. Meaning, nothing would have changed in Scotland. They would have stayed slaves forever. If they just did nothing. So the blackpilling, it's useless and pointless. And honestly, like, if you feel that way, Josie, like, then why are you listening to me? I mean, seriously, like, why do you care? Maybe it's a slow TV night or something, but Josie, what I'd rather see, and it's up to you, what I'd rather see is you say, hey, you know what, man, this destruction, it looks like it's coming our way, but God damn it, I'm gonna go out on my feet, not on my knees. And I don't think it's coming, by the way. I just don't. I think, yeah, technology, a lot of these things are scary, but I always say learn them. okay, and learn to harness them. But I respect your comments, and thank God we can still talk about this openly, Josie. We won't be able to after the midterms if things go wrong. Guarantee it. Well, I don't guarantee it, but that's my assumption. Josie Fusco, I fear you might be right. Again, I don't. It's only right if you allow it to happen. That's what I say. I mean, let's think about like the revolution. I'm not a historian, so don't like sharpshoot me, but they were losing. I mean, the revolutionaries were losing. They had very little support. Things were falling apart, and that the revolution went on for years. Yet they never gave up. All was always lost. I'm sure they had a lot of doomers in their ranks saying, oh, all is lost. What's it matter anyways? We should just give up. Were things so bad under British rule? Thank God they didn't. Okay, thank God they didn't, because we wouldn't be talking today. So guys, Josie and even Liberate America, think positively and act positively. If there's something you can do do you want to be destroyed? Because if you want to be destroyed, then I say by all means lay down and let yourself get destroyed. If you don't want to be destroyed, you're just accepting that you can't do anything about it. Well, try, if you haven't already, do something about it and start locally. What's that mean? I don't know. Depends on your community. It could mean starting a podcast. It could mean running for office and, stamping out these idiotic DSA members. My ex-wife did that. She saw the way they were running up budgets in the town they live in, just a few towns over. And to her credit, I mean, this is not a politician type of woman, but she's an accountant. And she's like, this is crazy. My taxes are going nuts. It's in Massachusetts, and I got to put a stop to this. She printed out signs, ran for town council, and guess what? Boom, she got it. And she's already cleaned up the budget. They're still dealing with some problems, but thank God she's there, because who knows what would be happening. And she also got herself on the school council as well, because she didn't like which way curricula was going. Or look at Moms for Liberty. Tiffany Justice, she started that when her own kid, who was autistic, was made to sit outside in the hallway and look into the classroom because he was autistic and he wouldn't keep the mask on. Can you imagine if she just said, oh, I can't do anything about it anyways? No, but the Moms for Liberty, man, they've changed it for the good. So many things about, curricula throughout our school system. They've done amazing work. Okay, amazing work. Or even, my wife, and then kind of me more in the background on the research end. She could have just sat up in the woods where we were stuck for the pandemic, which I quite enjoyed, and said nothing, but she couldn't. She had to do something, and look where that got us. It was Daily Clout that really broke most of those vaccine stories. There's a whole book about it, in conjunction with Steve Bannon's War Room. Thank God, people like that stepped up. Okay, and some of our friends now are running those agencies. And I could go on, but guys, the point is, Josie, come on, you got a nice smile on your profile. Keep it smiling, man. Keep it smiling. Be strong, because being strong and fighting, even if you lose, but fighting and knowing you put up a good fight, it feels way better. And I think you know that. They are all in bed together. No such thing as left or right. Two wings. Okay, so that's a common thing. There's definitely a left and a right. Trust me on that one. Because if there wasn't a left and a right, the left wouldn't be trying to kill the right so often. So yeah, there's definitely money, and there's definitely, I think more for the kind of rhinos and the left. They're kind of the same thing, but there's clearly a left and a right. I mean, I have it here in my neighborhood where, I have, I'm like one of the only Republicans in the county, and trust me, I hear about it. No one says it to my face, but I hear about it. So let me see here. Okay, Josie, I'm going to get one positive comment out of you, if I get any. Okay, elections have always been selections, as elections are selections. I've heard that one before. I'm Canadian. Come on, you're Canadian, and you're putting gloom and doom on my American audience. I understand now why you're so pessimistic. I'm Canadian, but have been exposed to a lot. AI end goal is to destroy humanity. Well, that might be AI's end goal. That's why you have to harness it. I do fear the same thing, because the way algorithms work, if some idiot says, hey, bring peace on Earth, and they give it to AI, AI might decide that human beings are the cause of no peace on Earth. So yeah, there's a Terminator fear there. I hear you, Josie, but I also know in Canada, it's just, good God, man. I love Canada, but holy. By the way, I'm not even allowed in Canada anymore, because at the beginning, like, I think it's like March 2020, I was doing a job for a Native American company, and I had to go up to Montreal to watch this meeting occur, no kidding, between the Dominicans, the Russians, and this rogue faction of the tribe I was working for. And I kid you not, I was going through near Cornwall, Canada, over near the Akwesasne tribe on the U.S. side, Hogansburg, New York. And I had a rental car, everything like that. I got pulled over at the Canadian side without even showing my ID. They knew who I was, and I was detained for like 6 freaking hours. And I've got my Google map shot to prove it. And then they said I could go into Cornwall, but I had to be out of Canada by midnight. And I have the form that I wasn't supposed to keep. And I went and had some breakfast. They followed me. I have pictures of that. And I was like, screw this, I'm just going back. And I figured I'd miss the meeting anyways. And then I get detained on the U.S. side for the same thing. And I'll never forget it. The poor new guy that was with me, he'd never done any investigative work before, definitely no field work. He was shaking like a leaf on the U.S. side. Great guy, but I didn't think to pre-brief him on what to do if we get detained, because, 2020 is Canada. Always the friendly country. And I'll never forget this, but they're literally like, not strip searching him, but they wanted to look inside his boots and all this. And they would be with me in a second, as I said, and this is the U.S. side. And I just laid on the bench and started taking a nap. And I hear the young border guy say, "You seem like a pretty nice guy. What do you do with this character?" He said that to Tonio about me. And I said, "What the hell did I do?" And I finally got out of there just because I decided I was going to call a lawyer. And that was the end of it. But I was amazed that Canada had changed so much. And another thing, and I'm not meaning to pick on Canada, I love the Canadians, but don't like the government. And the other thing that was crazy about it is I didn't realize I was in Canada anymore. Like, I'd had lighter detainments in Morocco and Egypt and some of the places I used to work through. And I was like, Canada, man, what has happened up here? And so then I later found out I couldn't go to Canada anymore. So I don't know if that's changed, but I actually called and I was on some sort of list. I forgot what they call it. Anyways, all right. Josie Fusco, at least a big part of each. We need to fight back. Thank you, Liberate America. Hear that, Josie? Need to fight back. And Josie, we will pass you anything you need right through the border. Seriously. Like, come on down, seriously, come visit. We're not that far away from you. I have a place in Hudson Valley, New York. So it's about a 6-hour drive if you're from the border. Okay. And then Roscoe, good to see you. Always good to see you. MTG said Trump was going to allow foreign beef, which will undercut our farmers. Just what she said. Yeah, I mean, I don't believe anything MTG says, but if you could find me some sort of trade deal or something like that, you know how we work here, Roscoe. You've been here for a while. Facts. And honestly, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene moved out of the country. I don't trust anything she says. I think she's horrible. I used to like her. I think she's horrible, though. And she's clearly trying, her and Tucker and Massey and all them. They're forming this Freedom Party or whatever they call it. Guys, make no mistake about it. I listened to Tucker's entire idiotic manifesto, which was just pure Mao, Xi, Lenin, Marx, and with the sprinkling of Alexander Dugin. And the whole point of that party is to split the conservative vote just in time for the midterms. Guarantee that's what it's for, because they don't have a hope in hell of winning any of their candidates. There's not one candidate that Tucker Carlson has endorsed that has won. Not one since Trump's been back in office. I don't think they care. Okay, let's not forget Tucker's a bit of a mercenary. He started on MSNBC. He was their conservative guy. Then he went somewhere else. Then he was on Fox, and then now he's doing his independent flannel T-shirt. I'm just one of the, oh shucks, I'm just Mr. Smith, and I went to Washington. The guy's a messaging mercenary, plain and simple, and they know they can't win any elections. They just want to split the vote. That's it. And in which case, our enemies win, because we all know when the DSA is in power, that means the axis of Iran and Pakistan, China and Russia are actually in control of our country. The end goal is to destroy humanity. Oh, Josie, God damn. Good thing I'm not drinking bourbon tonight. But again, okay, Josie, look, everyone look at Josie's smile. How can she have that positive smile like that and be so negative? Okay, I want you to come back to the show, because we're gonna give. I actually could use someone in Canada. We need to get more intel out of there. Maybe you could help us with that. The end goal is to destroy humanity and bring in the beast system. I think that's the devil's plan for sure. I totally agree with that. Trump is doing just that. Really won't matter who is in the White House. They were all puppets fulfilling an agenda. Yeah, I think there's an agenda. I don't think they're all puppets. I just don't. And I think that's the reason why they tried to kill Trump several times. And no, I don't think it was fake. No, I don't think it was a false flag. Yes, I think Joe Kent is full of shit. And no, I don't think Joe Kent was a very good NCTC director. I'm amazed he got that job, especially because he sounds like he's never seen a piece of intel in his life. I would know. I was there as a contractor when they set the NCTC up. I know that operation very well. I digress. I agree with you, but I don't think they're all puppets fulfilling an agenda. I look at presidents this way. Okay. I look at presidents the same way I look at carpenters, plumbers, electricians. My mechanic is a great example. Tough guy to talk to. Love him to death. We're good friends. We've learned to respect each other, and I like him a lot. But a lot of people don't, because he, says things that offend people, but damn, he's a good mechanic. And he's probably the best mechanic in the Tri-County area in New York. And I will drive 2 hours to get my car there if it's drivable. Okay. And honestly, I don't care if he's nice to me when I drop it off. I care that the car gets fixed, and it always does with him. You should go back and watch my episodes on Trump's grand strategy. It's holding to this day. And the strategy is total global energy dominance for the United States, which makes the United States a unipolar power of the world. Why is that good? Well, that's good because, like they said in Highlander, if you're as old as me, there can be only one. And if someone's going to be at the top of this world, I'd rather it be us than China. Okay, because that's what China wants. And by having total global energy dominance, which we're fast approaching, we now have the Europeans making deals with us for oil. We have China has hinted at it. Ukraine has weirdly become, helpful in reducing the Russians' ability to produce oil by 20% since 2025 with all of their drone strikes when they shifted their target set in July of 2025 from military targets to oil infrastructure. That has limited the amount they can ship off to China. China's down 44% on oil imports, and this causing, believe it or not, this causing chaos in China. Okay. It's a gamble because we are depleting our strategic reserves are at a historic low. That's a problem. But this is one of those things. It's kind of like, really, who falls first? So we're in it to win it. That's the thing. Now, if we lose the midterms, all that stops, and it'll be worse than we can imagine. Okay. I mean, just imagine if, I think right now we control 60 or 60 plus of the world's oil. I mean, think about for all the people that want peace between Ukraine and Russia. Okay. Neither one is coming to the table. But if you control the energy, well, then they kind of have to. Look at the problems we've had with China. Stop the aggression in the Philippines. Stop the aggressive moves towards Taiwan or the rhetoric. Don't just waltz into Hong Kong ahead of time and just take it over, which they did. Can you imagine if we could say, yeah, okay, fine, you could do that, but we're cutting off all your energy. It's better than bombs, okay? And it's better than bombs. So I'm all for it. And if you go back, watch my episode, you'll see what I mean. We are controlling most of the major trade routes now in the world, either through heavy influence or military presence with Navy exercises, like with us and the Indonesians in the Strait of Malacca, our joint military exercises and oil deals with the Greeks, puts us right in the heart of the Mediterranean. Our moves towards Greenland, our deployments up to the north. I mean, we are taking control of all trade routes. And that's okay with me. That's okay. And I just want to say this. I was thinking about this the other day. I can't remember a time in history when people weren't proud to be the most powerful and the strongest nation on earth. Like, there's this weird thing, like, we got to apologize for being so freaking awesome. And we're freaking awesome. And you know what? Yeah, we make our mistakes. We hurt people sometimes. Shit happens. But compared to the other empires, if you want to call us that, in the world, we're probably the most humane, and we definitely have the most just legal system, believe it or not. Compare our legal system to any other legal system in the world in history, and you'll choose ours over anyone else's if you need to choose. So I'm proud that we're heading in a unipolar direction. And I'm really proud because when the multipolarists, the people like that say, that follow the fourth political theory of Alexander Dugin, the Russian Putin's brain guy, who Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Joe Ken, Redacted News, Kim Iverson, Jimmy Dore, they're all just parroting Alexander Dugin, Jeffrey Sachs, who, they advocate for a multipolar world where we all stay in our little spheres of influence and no one's going to bother each other. See, the problem with that is the other 5 or 6 spheres are all of our enemies. So do you really think they're going to just not bother us? I think not. All right. Jose and Liberate are having great conversations. I'm terrified about what's going on up there. I love my Canadian brothers and sisters. And I've seen since COVID just how many rights have been stripped from you guys. Good luck. Canada is the canary in the coal mine for America, much like Western Europe. The time to fight was yesterday. You're spot on, Josie. Yeah, I'm worried about Canada too, and we all should be worried about what's going on in Canada because they're our next door neighbor, and there's a lot of Canadian Americans. Okay, there's a lot of American Canadians. A lot of people have families on both sides. We have a lot of trade. So we should be worried about that, and we should always try to help Canada and vice versa as much as we can, because that, a weak Canada means a weak northern border for America, and, the Canadians are heavily influenced by the government. I mean, Josie, not you, are heavily influenced by the, unfortunately, the EU, okay? But the people that I've met in Canada are pretty damn proud of being Canadian and proud of not being under socialist or dictatorial rule. So hopefully they can come out from underneath it. I'd love to get more Canadians on the show to tell me exactly what's going on up there, because it's hard to get any clear information. I did try to watch CBC, and honestly, I was so depressed after like 10 minutes, I had to turn it. It's the most depressing legacy news in the world. It's worse than the BBC. So I'm sure Josie knows what I'm talking about. All right. But I didn't vote, Brian. Wouldn't you prefer that to me voting Democrat? No. Okay. Because Roscoe, first of all, as we've seen with the Democrats, if you don't vote, they're going to vote for you probably. But also, Roscoe, you're on the show. That means you investigate everything, I assume. And you might be in a state like I'm in where you only have Democrats to vote for, so you vote for the least damaging one. Okay. But you're also exercising your fundamental rights. Okay. Because if we stop doing that and we see voter turnout going lower and lower, that will create kind of a snowball effect. And then the people in power will not fear the voter anymore. And I think for me, that's why I vote, is to let them know I'm there, and so no one else steals my vote and casts it for some Marxist. Okay, so it depends on the Democrat. And I mean Democrat. I don't mean Marxist or champagne socialist. I mean Democrat. I can't think of any good ones right now, but there used to be some. Yeah, maybe there'll be some again. I mean, look, if I had it my way, I think we always need at least a two-party system. But if I had it my way, man, I would be encouraging a lot of these independents to pretend they're Democrats, run on the Democrat ticket, just like the DSA is doing, except then come out very conservative once they've gotten in their seat. I don't know why we're not doing that. You know, that's what the DSA does. Is DSA is not a party; they're a PAC, and what they do is they run on the Democrat ticket to get into power. This is what the Stalinists did in Czechoslovakia in 1948. They took over the existing kind of left wing of that government, and then took positions like police and intelligence, and then they used that to take out their enemies on the left, and then they took the whole thing over. Stalin was smart. He installed all these people, and this is crazy, but you know what he also did? He also had some right-wing factions spreading rumors and lies among the conservatives of Czechoslovakia to basically scuttle them. One of those rumors was not that the Jews are responsible for everything, because that wouldn't have worked right after World War II. Plus, you know, in Czechoslovakia, that would mean you were pro-Nazi, which would be a death sentence. So they blame the Slovaks for all their problems. But it's literally the same script that we're seeing today. Okay, so it again, I mean, to answer your question, Roscoe, it depends on the Democrat, depends on the candidate. You know, I don't vote blindly in any direction. I vote on the issues and who is going to support the issues that I support. That's where I stand. But to be fair, and I've said it before, I don't trust Democrats, so I would never vote for them. I would vote for the losing Republican candidate in Massachusetts or New York before I ever voted for a Democrat, because they've shown they can't be trusted because they have that groupthink, and they've capitulated to the DSA. It's amazing to me that they keep capitulating. They're like literally like, it's like capitulating to a bully. Hey, if I just do what he says, he won't hit me, and then he hits him, and then like, okay, if I just do what he says this time, he won't hit me, and then he hits him again, and they just constantly get beat up. It's disgusting. Josie, the end goal is to. Oh my God, Josie, you're killing me here. Jump. Okay, wait, I already read that comment. Hey, Josie, where can we go from there? What's our starting point? I could tell you where you go from there. You start with your family, teaching them history immediately, but you also get involved. Get involved. You know, counter protest. Let people know you're there, because anything you can do to make things a slow go or a no go area for the enemy, they help. Okay. And people think, well, what can I do? It's just me and everything. Well, a lot of our greatest leaders, especially, you know, people who have really helped get out the vote and stuff for Trump, okay, were just one or two people, but they did it. Look at the sign guy, man. That dude's bold as hell. Like, you know, the sign, I forgot his name, but he stands there with the sign and about anti-LGBTQ stuff. That stuff has impact, because for those people, which is a lot of people you meet on the street that are largely unaware of what's going on geopolitically, they get interested, they start looking into it. You know, so remember, if you influence one person, that's huge, because that person, you can guarantee, will influence one or two people, and it just keeps mushrooming from there. So that's what you can do. And, you know, I hate to say call truth to power, but if you're in the diner, or you're at the truck stop, or you're at the office, or you're at the library, not that many people go to the library anymore, or you're online, if someone says something that's patently false, call them out on it. Don't worry about losing followers. Don't worry about what they'll say. Don't worry about not being invited back to someone's house for dinner. Say what's on your mind. Say it nicely and have some facts, but say it. Trust me, I was doing this all throughout the pandemic with some people in my family, and Even my daughter's boyfriend at the time, he'd want to debate with me every night after she went to bed. We had to wait till she went to bed because she didn't want to hear it. And this guy was like the lead counsel, or not lead counsel, he was like the government affairs for Madison Square Garden and a DSA guy. And I'd sit down, we'd pour a drink, and I'd say, okay, what do you want to talk about, Mike? And he'd be like, oh, all this stuff you say about Pfizer's untrue. Pfizer never, even took a profit. They stopped everything to make the vaccine for humanity. And I said, oh my God. I just told him to go study or something and check the stock pages. It was so dumb. But the point is, he stopped debating with me because he studied and he researched and he wanted to prove me wrong. And then he proved me right because I was right. And he didn't realize that until he did the research trying to prove me wrong. Even that has an impact. So that's how you have to do it. And look, I spent a lot of time in the intelligence community. You may never see the results or see the tangible results or get credit for the results, but that doesn't matter as long as you get the results. In the intelligence community, we did a lot of good things. Believe it or not, the intelligence community does do a lot of good things. They're not all bad. But I never knew the fruits of my labor. I didn't know if I was responsible for that good thing happening or I just happened to be working on the same thing, but I didn't care. I didn't care about the credit. Otherwise, I would never join the Intel community where you can't really take credit because, you're not going to reveal where you work. Mine was more about like, I don't want another 9/11, and that's where I was at. Okay, let me see. But I do wonder about the utility of voting. Well, I'm telling you, Roscoe, there's no utility of not voting. Okay. And as we've seen, if you don't vote, someone's going to fill out that ballot and put your name on it. Watch what we're doing in New York right now. I could have voted for 15 people if I wanted to. And if you don't vote, you don't have an argument. If people don't vote, I guarantee your votes will be filled out. We've seen that. They're going to look for anyone who's registered who doesn't vote. I guarantee the bad actors are going to fill out that vote and put your name on it. And you'll be none the wiser because you didn't vote. Okay? And take a picture of your ballot, when you do. Look, even if you go in there and you mark other, it's better than not voting. Okay? It's good for them to see the numbers turning up. If you just stay home, you only got yourself to blame if things go Canadian. No offense to Josie. Based on biblical prophecy, destruction will happen. I am not saying not to do anything. I am not saying to be doom and gloom, but I put my faith in God. Yeah, I put my faith in God too, for sure, without a doubt. But I also believe that God equipped us with opposable thumbs and logical, critical thinking brains to do what we can. I don't think he ever intended for us to just pray and wait for him to save the day. I think he intended for us to find the strength in ourselves and fight and do things for ourselves. Otherwise, why would he give us so much ability? He would have just made us slugs. So I hear you, but people have different beliefs on this, but I've never been one to believe that, like, if you just pray and wait, things will happen. Actually, there's a really well-known joke. Okay. Let me see if I could get this right. Okay. So this guy, this guy is at his house. He's in Louisiana and the floodwaters are rising. And as the police come, they say, hey, get out of there. It's, we're doing an evacuation. You're going to drown if you stay in that house. He goes, nope, I'm waiting for God to save me. And they said, okay, well, just fine. And so then 2 hours later, the Coast Guard comes up and they have a dinghy because now the water is halfway up the door. And they say, hey, get in the boat. You're going to drown if you stay in that house. He goes, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then it gets up to the roof and he climbs up on the roof and a helicopter, it comes down from, pararescue and they say, dude, grab the ladder. That house is going to be underwater. You're going to drown. He goes, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. Well, eventually the house goes under. Man drowns. He ends up at the pearly gates and he's really mad. And he says to God, it's as St. Peter's staring at him like, oh, it's this guy. And he says, God, thank you for welcoming me into your kingdom. But I prayed. I did everything you said. Why didn't you save me? And God says, geez, what do you want? I sent the cops a boat and a helicopter. You get it? So that, I think, is, so I hear you. And then there's another one too. This is not from God, but from the Buddhists. And there's a great, I guess, story I heard from Dan Goleman, who wrote, he created Emotional Intelligence. It's actually my uncle-in-law. And he was telling this story that the Dalai Lama had told him. And as the story goes, the Dalai Lama, he's been doing his teachings about turning the other cheek and peace on earth and all that. And he comes across this guy who's in the woods, and the guy's mangled all to crap. He's all cut up. His limbs are broken. He's barely alive. And the Dalai Lama says, "Hey, what happened?" And he goes, "I got trampled by an elephant." And he says, "Well, why did you do that? How'd that even happen?" The guy says, "Well, I mean, there was an elephant charging at me, and, well, you told me to turn the other cheek, so I did, and then it trampled me." And the Dalai Lama says, "I also told you to get out of the way first." So again, I don't know if these are applicable, but, it is what it is. The human species was losing once. We were whittled down to just a few tiny, tiny hateful of sapiens, and we really came back. Thank you, Roscoe. Yes, absolutely right. Handful, not hateful. Well, let me read it again now. We were whittled down to just a tiny, tiny handful of sapiens, and we really came back. That is true. Yep. Absolutely agree with what your wife did. I'm all for exposing truth and evil. Then keep exposing it. Be our eyes and ears in Canada, and I will amplify it here. I really do need that. So, feel free to get in contact with me via my email, which I'll put up here on the banner right there. And just make sure you put a hashtag, like a subject line for this show, so I know it's you. That's my email there. That goes to me directly. Because I would love to get some insight, more insight, daily insight, weekly insight into what's going on up in Canada. Okay, back to the comments. All right, let me move that banner there. Okay. Where'd it go? Banners. There we go. All right, hide. All right, and now we're going to do back to the comments. So they are. Okay, where were we? All right, so human species, long, tiny, tiny. There we go. Truth and evil. Okay, so we did that one. And then now I understand. Yes, I was just saying absolutely. Canada, yeah, I get it now, Josie. Stay strong. It's crazy there. Absolutely stay strong. And honestly, like, the most amazing people emerge from hard times. Okay, the most amazing people emerge from hard times. I forgot the quote, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And I know I do best when things are not going well and everything's falling apart, and I actually I've got no choice. That's when I think people really find their inner warrior. There was a guy in Canada. He happened to be Asian. He brutally stabbed total stranger to death on a Greyhound. They let him out, no monitoring in like 5 years. Well, there's the science for you. Yeah, don't even get me started about like how I feel about vigilantism, but I feel strongly about it in a good way. FYI, I am not anti-American, as you alluded to. I don't think you're anti-American, and I didn't allude to that. Absolutely not. I even worked on and off in Florida for many years. Great state. And yes, I'm very concerned with how the government has gone rogue and communist. Yeah, the communist thing, it's been happening for a long time. We just didn't notice it until, last 10, 15 years. I always say McCarthy was right because it turns out he was right. I'm amazed that, I didn't even start thinking about communism again until, to be honest, 2019. And I was like, that seems communist. I hadn't thought about communism since the 80s. And I was like, wait a minute, that seems communist. That seems communist. And I started seeing changes, and you can see the changes a lot more in blue states. And I was like, there's something wrong here. And then, of course, when COVID started, it went pure Red Guard communism. Just replace that Karen or that Karen's husband who's yelling at you to put on a mask. That's a soft version of Mao's Red Guards. I mean, it was crazy. And I can't believe we're here again. But you know why? Because communism never got defeated. It just went underground. We thought it was done when we beat the Soviet Union. In reality, it just went underground. It just spread out. And it was always kind of planted in our society going way back to prior to World War II. And I was reading this really good book called Big Intel, T. Michael Waltz, and he goes into the history of communism in our getting put in our government. And there were so many communists that were allowed to infiltrate into the OSS and later the CIA, our intelligence community, our State Department. So many of them were able to come in because we were only focused on Nazis. We were only focused on the Nazi threat. I mean, don't forget, we used to call Stalin Uncle Joe. He was our bud. He was good. We weren't worried about communism back then, so we let a lot of them in. And then even more of them came in when we needed, Greek speakers and Spanish speakers and, in our intelligence community. Whereas prior to that, the intelligence community, we kind of followed that British aristocrat model where, it was kind of the highbrow place to go. Well, then it became like letting a lot of people in. Okay, and same with our military. Not doing it justice, but it's a really interesting history, and I recommend everyone read it. It's called Big Intel. Can't miss it. Psychiatrist said, and Canadian state agreed. He's not responsible. He was sick then. They let him out in record time. No monitoring. Look what's happening. What is the name? Guys, someone pop up the name of that lady that killed her kids. That's disgusting what's happening. Mom murders kids. It's the big case going on. I haven't been following it as closely as I should, but to be honest, it's the last week of summer and I had my son with me. Yeah, Lindsay Clancy case, man. So let me put this up on the screen. I don't know if you guys have been following this. It kind of reminds me of what Roscoe was saying about that case there. Let me remove James. Yep, there we go. And I'm going to put this up. Share screen. And yeah. Okay, so this is PBS yesterday. Psychologist testifies Lindsay Clancy was not criminally responsible in the killing of her 3 children. Plymouth, Massachusetts. Lindsay Clancy didn't appreciate the wrongfulness of killing her 3 children because of her mental health issues. A psychologist testifying for the defense said at her trial on Wednesday. The testimony of Paul Zeisel is the strongest evidence yet to support the defense contentions that Clancy would not be held legally responsible for the murder because she has bipolar disorder and was in the grip of a rare mental illness called postpartum psychosis when she killed her children before trying to kill herself. Zeisel began seeing Clancy as a patient at a hospital after the deaths. She was unable... I want to point that out. Zeisel began seeing Clancy as a patient at a hospital after the deaths. Ever crossed a psychologist's mind that Clancy's saying exactly what she knows to say to get the insanity defense? She was unable to conform her behavior to the rule of law. She had no appreciation for the wrongfulness of her act. Clancy, 36, pleaded not guilty to the murder charges in the deaths of Callan, Dawson, Cora Clancy, who ranged from 8 months to 5 years old. Postpartum psychosis is linked to stress, sleep deprivation. 3 kids. God, this pisses me off. Which is more serious and less common than postpartum depression. Prosecutors say the former labor and delivery nurse planned the 2023 killings and contrived to get her husband out of the house by sending him to pick up medicine for one of their children. Zeisel, Zeisel spent more than 35 hours with Clancy over dozens of visits. Okay, guys, here's someone's homework. Someone find out everything they can about this doctor. I would love to present your findings on this show. You will get full credit for it, and I will promote your Substack if you do. Yeah. Had a mental disease. Okay, so she was unable to conform. She had no appreciation for wrongfulness, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So Clancy was not getting better. Zaisu, who said he spent more than 35 hours with Clancy over dozens of visits and reviewed her medical records, said she went to a prenatal clinic in December of 2022 because she felt her brain was damaged. She would kill herself, and she is never going to get better. She also showed signs of psychosis, was paranoid, and feared the people could hear her thoughts and that she would lose her children. Maybe that's true, but if that is true, and she was going all these doctor visits, isn't that kind of a failing of the state-run medical system, who has been getting tons of extra money for mental health lately? It's been all the rage since 2024. She was worried that her children would be removed from her and that she would never see them again. Well, she made that happen. But just because she was in a psychotic state, Zeisel said, that didn't mean she couldn't do everyday tasks of living. This sounds like bullshit. Like driving and searching the internet, a reference to the fact that the day of the killings, she took her daughter to the doctor, played with the children in the snow, and searched online for a pharmacy and a restaurant. So the fact she is not talking about the unicorns in the corner, she is not slurring her words, and well, to your opinion, to a degree of medical certainty, does that mean she is not in a psychotic state? Clancy's attorney, Kevin Reddington, asked. Zesso responded, it does not. Okay, so here's the credibility. Okay, we won't go into that. I'm just looking for one particular thing here, and I'll tell you what it is. Prosecutor Shannon Buckingham also read daily reports from Tewksbury Hospital, the state psychiatric hospital where Clancy stays. That included the anniversary of the killings and what would have been her children's birthdays. Those reports mentioned her parents sometimes visiting or her talking to other patients. I don't understand the relevance of this, but they never mentioned anything that she did to remember her children. Reddington asked Zeisel if he saw anything in the record from the hospital about her laughing and partying and having a good time while in the hospital. Lindsay, Clancy has bad days and worse days, Zeisel said. So he didn't answer. Zeisel also said Clancy often talks about her children, in front of Zeisel, aiming to dispel prosecutors' well, we know she's aiming to dispel prosecutors' contention that she never mentions them. This is unbelievable. Hold on, I'm going to increase this so you guys can see it. Let's see. This is unbelievable. If convicted of murder, Clancy faces life in prison without parole. If found guilty because of lack of criminal responsibility, she would have be committed to a state mental facility. Okay, so to your point, Roscoe, sorry, that was a long distraction. So it's PBS News. Pay attention to the source. What I'm going to do now is just got to look something up here, and I'll tell you what I was looking for. Okay. Give me a second. Okay, it's coming. All right. So, yes, good point, Roscoe. It's surprising Alex Jones. Oh, no, he's been following Dugan since like 2015. That's when he first went and appeared at Dugan on Sargrad, which is the kind of like the big Russian-owned TV network. He's been in the Dugan camp for a long time, a very long time. Different show, though. All right. I'm just reading. Underway recently. God, even like... you got to be kidding me. I went to AI and AI said it won't expand on how... Okay, forget it. All right. This is a whole nother episode. Bear with me. I know I'm thinking to myself here, but I'm going to get into this in a second. Okay, guys. Jeez. Unbelievable. Okay, so what I was looking for was how Lindsay Clancy killed her children. Because, they're saying as psychotic. She strangled them. Each one of them. She strangled them. And it took me 2 pages of Google to find that out. Even Grok wouldn't tell me, it wouldn't expand. This is what Grok said. Like, they're censoring it. Grok says, which, Grok is fairly reliable. You always got to check your sources, but it's good for getting leads. She also attempted to take her own life that day and sustained serious injuries that left her paralyzed from the waist down. She has been held in a state hospital facility. Details of any methods involved in the children's death or her suicide attempt are not something I will describe or expand on. Jesus. Anyways, yeah, I mean, she strangled them. I don't know what's going on in Massachusetts. I don't know if they just hate children, but this is the same state, the state I'm in right now, that recently passed a law allowing women to have abortions up to the day of birth. I kid you not. It's becoming a death culture in these blue states. The only reason I'm here is because I've got a 15-year-old and I am not going anywhere until he is safely on his way out of this hellscape. Before anyone says, "Whoa, why are you up there?" So yeah, that is some crazy ass shit. All right, excuse my language. All right, we're back. So, okay. Whew. You guys, we got to do an episode, I guess, on Lindsay Clancy. I know a lot of people have, but this is insane. Absolutely insane. Would follow. Amazing show I shared to my 20K. So, hey, thank you so much, Liberate America. That's really, really generous of you. I really appreciate that. Make sure they say your name in whatever if they follow or something, so I make sure I follow them back. We have a lot of censorship bills here in Canada. It's very concerning. Our media is controlled and funded by our government. I know. We have like 3 mainstream media outlets that follow the same narrative dictated by our government. It's all lies. I don't watch TV anymore. Yeah, I mean, I don't either. Actually, the only TV I do watch is I'll watch local news, and if you record it, and something happens, they don't always have time to censor it, and then you have a record of it. So I got that TiVo type, I think it's called TiVo, but where you could record things. And that's how I got a lot of information on the Cambridge shooting that happened, not too far from here, where the guy was tearing up Cambridge. And I got to revisit that episode, by the way, find out what's going on with that case. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'll give you a little preview of that, a post view of that. Linda, thank you. Yep, got it. And hey, what's up, man? Kaiwan, I like your sketches on your ex, by the way. Do you think this is innocent fraud, or do you believe that he was really sick? Thank you so very much. I came in late. I was late too. But fraud or he was really sick. Who? Innocent fraud or who are we talking about? Kaiwan, if you would just kind of let me know who you're talking about, I'd be happy to answer. I'm just going through. Yeah, I'm not sure who you're talking about. So, I always answer your questions if I can. So, okay, Josie Fusco, vaccines are the reason. Well, that's what. I don't think vaccines are the reason that she strangled her children. No, I don't think that's the reason, because I know that's what Candace Owens said. But yeah, I mean, there's no, I mean, and trust me, one thing I do know is the adverse events of the vaccine. We wrote 2 books on it. But no, I don't think that's the reason. I don't know. I'm not a medical examiner, but I think if that was the reason, that reason would come up in court. And like most of Candace's idiotic theories, none of them ever come up in court, not even by the defense. That should tell you something. So no, I don't think it was the vaccines. But welcome, Nettie. Good to see you, Nettie Slabby. Fake corona. I do believe corona was fake. I think it was just the flu. I've always said that. The reason for, I bet it's a fake case. Are you talking about? Oh, come on, Nettie. Are you trolling me? Seriously. The kids are dead. I don't think they died of natural causes. Jerry Fusco to destroy. Okay, I'm gonna stop putting Nettie's comments up there. Oh, okay. Hold on, I might talking about the lady. Oh, okay, gotcha. The Clancy lady. I mean, even if she, just because someone's insane, you gotta, I mean, there's a really, really steep level of evidence you have to show she was not aware of the consequences of her actions. It's, let's put it this way. One of the most famous, highly functioning psychotic serial killers was who? Can anyone guess? Anyone guess? He almost ran for mayor of the city he was living in. Handsome. Women loved him. Toast of the town. Had some pretty high-ranking friends. Highly functioning, insane, crazy, evil murderer. I'll give it a second if you guys want to guess who I'm talking about. Let me see. I do not believe this is a real case. My previous... Okay, gotcha. Well, I put you up there anyways, Ned. What else you got? No, I am not. OJ was a Hollywood production. Chris Watts was a fake case. Joan Benoit was a fake case. Yeah, I'm not going to go down all those roads. I don't think OJ was a Hollywood production. I think he actually killed his wife. I think it was a really poorly handled case. And it is actually the case that gave birth to 24-hour news cycle. That's when CNN got on the map. I remember watching that live. It was crazy. Okay. Sorry, Nettie. I couldn't tell, so my apologies. No, I'm not. OJ was okay. So Charles Manson, no, definitely not. Come on, I said handsome. Josie, I said handsome. Manson, well, maybe he's handsome to some people, but let me see. He escaped back in 83, right? Do you know what I'm talking about, Kaiwan? I'll just tell you guys. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy. If you ever want to read a really good book about Ted Bundy, read, what is her name? Mary Rule, one of the, in my opinion, one of the best true crime authors out there. She's no longer with us. God rest her soul. Mary Rule, her first book was called The Stranger Beside Me. And she was working in Seattle at the time. She used to write the narratives that would go in the murder books for the police, murder book being a murder file. And it was a synopsis of the case. So they would hire writers back then to kind of like summarize the case in a narrative form. That way prosecutors could look at it, get a really quick view of the case, or people had good status on it. But she went to school to be a writer. And what she also did is she worked part-time at a suicide prevention hotline center just outside of Seattle. And she was very good friends with this handsome guy that sat next to her, also helping people to prevent from them killing themselves. And then one day he just stopped coming to work. Well, it turned out one of her best friends for years was Ted Bundy. And that's launched her career, and that's why she called it The Stranger Beside Me. Crazy story. But no one even guessed. I mean, they were literally going to run this guy for mayor of Seattle. And he knew exactly what he was doing. And that's the thing. You can be psychotic and still know exactly what you're doing. So I think it's a weak defense. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but as I understand, being psychotic means basically you just have to keep going up a level. There is psychosis where people hear voices and everything. They said bipolar. I don't know a lot of auditory hallucinations from bipolarism. I do know it comes from schizophrenia. but I don't know. The whole thing seems weak. I mean, I really got to dig into that case because I'm really burning with curiosity about it. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I guess I get to know I was a little bit hesitant, but it's been a while since I heard about death by Ted Bundy. Escape from prison. No, he escaped like 3 times. And I'm not sure if he was a Republican or a Democrat. Probably a Democrat. I'm not sure. That's if someone wants to look it up. Was Ted Bundy a Democrat or a Republican? And by the way, whether he's a Democrat or a Republican, I don't think it is a reason for his murder spree. But you asked, so I want to find out too, because now I hate not knowing things. But yeah, read that book if you guys get a chance. The Stranger Beside Me, amazing. Oh yeah, good for you, Nettie. All right, Nettie, you've gone to the top of the charts in my book. Excellent. It's a good book, right, Nettie? I mean, that's what I like about Mary Rule. Her books are, I mean, they're horrific, but she balances the gore with the story and has a Truman Capote way of telling the story. So it's just a page turner, as horrible as. But she's done like the Green River Killers and everything like that. Great books. Okay. All right. Here's your answer. So let me see. Ted Bundy was affiliated with the Republican Party. I'm surprised. He was actively involved in Republican politics in Washington State, and during the 1960s and 70s, well before his crimes became widely known. That's Salon magazine. In 1968, he worked on a grassroots effort to draft New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller, a moderate Republican, for the presidency, and attended the Republican National Convention that year as a Rockefeller delegate. I did not know all this. He served as a volunteer and high-ranking campaign worker for the successful 1972 re-election of Washington Governor Daniel J. Evans, who was a Republican. Contemporaries observed him tracking and taking detailed notes on Democratic opponent Albert Rossellini's speeches. Yeah, I'm wondering. I don't know. Nettie, this seems like right up your alley. I hope you don't mind me recommending assignments. But it'd be interesting to see if Ted Bundy took out any of the staff members or something from the opposition. Wouldn't that be crazy? After Evans' campaign, he was hired as an assistant to Ross Davis, the chairman of the Washington State Republican. This guy's through and through Republican. Governor Evans also appointed him to the Seattle Crime Prevention. Okay, I got to put this up. Okay, here we go. I'm going to pop this on the screen. Here we go. Check this out. All right, so Ted Bundy died 1989. Location death. He was executed in Florida. Male, white, straight, occupation criminal. Put it lightly. Serial killer, blamed pornography. Well, then we're in a lot of trouble in this world because everyone seems to be addicted to pornography. Volunteer campaign, Jay Evans, pointing. Oh my God. So in return, volunteer for the campaign, Governor Daniel J. Evans. In return, for Ted Bundy being a volunteer, Daniel J. Evans appointed Bundy to the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Committee. Holy moly. Bundy's, oh my God. Okay, guys. We're going back to true crime. Bundy's stature rose as he became special assistant to Ross Davis, chairman, Washington State Republican Party. Wow. High school. Damn. Yep, there it is. Stranger Beside Me. Definitely pick it up. I mean, I shouldn't be laughing. It's tragic, but he was assigned to the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Committee. Well, Republican or Democrat, one thing is clear. They've always made horrible decisions in politics in Seattle to this day. Wow. Okay, that was a fun little detour. All right. Let me see. I read that book 1980s. Can have psychosis along with bipolar disorder. Yeah, I'm not a big. We actually have a psychiatrist or psychologist. You guys should check out her show on Daily Clout and Dr. Dina. And if you go to dailyclout.io, she's got a lot of really good information. You should definitely check it out. But these are interesting questions, Josie, and I think I'm actually going to write down a lot of these comments you guys are making because I'm very interested in this case. I'm especially interested in this. What's her name? Lindsay Clancy case because there's something really dark going on here in Massachusetts. I mean, the abortion thing, the thing they were doing with the immigrant. I mean, it's pretty dark, and I don't know what is going on up here, but it seems like it's getting darker. I actually got some local papers, so just curious what they're saying about it there. Ted Bundy, damn, that is crazy. Okay, where are we? If I ever go to New York, I would love to meet you and your wife. Sure, Nettie. Just let me know. You got my email. I'll have to do a background check on you, seriously. But yeah, we're always looking forward to meeting new people for sure. And by the way, I mean it because like my friend Glenn Tamir, he was on the show recently, but I met him on X and through the show, and I did a background check on him before I let him on the show. But that's what I do, and that's what you should do too before you even let anyone near you. But sure, Nettie, that'd be really cool. Your name sounds familiar though, if that's your real name. Love to learn more about you. All right, so Alicia, the Rockefeller Republican, not Oregon Republican, will never hear a word of. Yeah, true. Of word of your Reagan. Retype that one, Kywin. That'd be helpful for me. I just want to make sure I get your words correct. Have a good night. Enjoyed the discussion. Okay, well, come back. I might have to do more in the morning if you guys are around, and I might even do some on Sunday. Naomi's coming back tomorrow, so she's been out with a very good friend of ours, and she's been taking a break, so that's good. She needed it. I have a book published in 1990 which discusses violence, vaccines, minimum brain damage. You may have sent it to us, did you, Nettie? Because we get a lot of books, but your name does sound familiar, so I'd be, if that's your real name, or you've been on the show before or something. Is that your book there, Fake Corona? Put it, go ahead, put the put the link or something up if you would, or the name of the book. Okay, my twin daughter lives in NYC. They are artists. How old are your daughters? Mine is I have a late 20s daughter. She's in Brooklyn. She lives right down the road from me, which is nice. So she's also vacationing as well. But yeah, it's I worry about her all the time, but she's a tough kid. She actually grew up. My daughter grew up in California. On the eastern side of the Sierras, in a cowboy family. So there were always 400 head, and she did rodeo. She raised a pig for 4-H, and then somehow she ended up in Brooklyn, but she still carries a Glock. Dad made sure of that, and she's quite proficient with it. So she's a rare breed. I call her X-Class, but she's cool as hell. I love my daughter. She's awesome. Let me see. I meant to say, okay, gotcha. I meant to say Reaganite Republican, the 1980s. We never hear it again, but he's clearly a Rockefeller. I guess that place in Los Angeles. Yeah, no, you're right. That's a good point. Very good point. And it is interesting to compare the different breeds of Republicans and Democrats through the years because they certainly changed for sure. They were born in 1992. Wow, I am feeling old. That's when I joined the Army. It's in 1992. So, well, good for you. Good for you. They sound like great kids. I'm sure they are, for sure. Let me see. That's cool about your daughter. Yeah, she's awesome. My daughter's really cool. I don't disclose my kids' names or anything, but she's really cool. And my son's doing great too. He's 15. He went from kind of device in his hand, going the nerd route and being flabby to in 3 years, he joined football 3 years ago. Now he does 2 seasons of football. This kid, he's got 6-packs in his 6-packs, man. I mean, he's gotten me back to the gym because I don't want him to be able to kick my ass soon because he's he's amazing. And I got to say, those sports and those team sports for the kids are great. Like, he's just clearer thinking. He has teamwork. He's got some really wonderful empathy, kind of coupled with a good masculine strength. It's, he's done good. I'm really proud of him. And he even knows, he actually teaches me about the geopolitics of Eastern Europe, because he started watching Oversimplified when he was a kid, and then he got into real history. And I'm pretty impressed with both of my kids. And the kids are all right. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, how many do I have here? So I want to make sure I cover everything. Okay, so that is all the comments for now. But a couple things. I'm not going to go too much into this, but yeah, I'll save this one. Yeah. So back to the right and left, what's going on the right and left. Okay, so someone mentioned Alex Jones. I've done extensive research on his interactions with Dugan. They go way back, about 10 years now. You may recall he was all mad at, like, Candace Owens, right? I'd say maybe in the fall, like the late, maybe closer to December. I can't remember exactly. Maybe even into the new year, 2026. He was like mad about Candace Owens. I'll have to find those tweets and those videos. And then check this out. He turns on a dime. All of a sudden he makes a public apology to Candace. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, that's just weird. And that goes to my original argument in this episode. Like, these people seem like they're on the take. There's another thing going on the fringe or the wrong right that I want to point out as well. So let me get my X up here. Okay. I think I bookmarked these. Let me see what I got in the bookmarks up here. No, I can never find what I'm looking for. There we go. Okay, bookmark folders. There we go. Okay, so now the latest one today is, check this out. This is so fake. You guys want to see some fake shit? This is crazy. Really quickly though, before we go into that, I do want to tell you about the wellness company that is our sponsor for this episode. And I love the wellness company. I've said it 1,000 times. They are a great company, and I can't say enough about them. And here's what we got. So the wellness company, basically, they've been promoting a lot about this ivermectin and mebendazole. Okay. And apparently Dr. Harvey Risch, who is their chief epidemiologist and a very good friend of mine, an amazing doctor. But Harvey Risch, they've been watching these patients, cancer patients, who've taken this combination of mebendazole and ivermectin, and they've seen, in some cases, cancer reduce or cancer disappear. Now, these are all, I don't say anecdotal, but these are observations. They're not deep science research, but it was a control group, and the results have been really positive, according to Harvey Risch. And so the wellness company, they offer these things, and I want to talk to you about them. I'm just calling up their website right now. Okay. Now, why do I like the wellness company? Well, A, because they're real doctors. They actually have real doctors there, unlike some online pharmacies that I'm not allowed to mention because they'll sue me. But they have real doctors, and they're doctors I like and doctors I trust because I've actually used these doctors. So if you go to dailyclouthealth.com and use code dailyclout to save up to 60%, you'll use dailyclout to save up to 60% off free shipping. But let me show you their site because I really like these guys, and I would recommend to any of you, like, I'll put it this way, you get what you pay for. Okay, so you're going to find a lot of online pharmacies out there that have cheaper pills and cheaper ivermectin. Be careful be careful where you get your ivermectin. Okay. There's one company that I can't mention, but some of you might know it, where my other organization, consumerdiligence.org, we actually went deep on their ivermectin, and it turns out that this other company, this other pharmacy, they were sourcing their ivermectin from one of the most sanctioned plants by our FDA in China. They weren't compounding direct from China. Now think about this, especially, people, think of the possibilities. It's not a conspiracy theory to try to preempt what an enemy might do. But if you wanted to get rid of people who support a MAGA agenda or an American First agenda, and you're China, who definitely would love to see us be gone, how would you get to those voters? We talk about the vaccine, right? And the vaccine seems like a bioweapon. It really does. Well, if it was a bioweapon, the vaccine, I'm not saying it was because I don't have the science in front of me, but let's say hypothetically it was a bioweapon launched on us by our enemies, okay, with the help of some of our insiders. It wouldn't have worked the way you wanted because only the left primarily took it. There's some on the right, but the left was like all for it. Some of them were getting booster after booster after booster. We know a judge, he gets a booster every 6 months to this day. He's not our friend anymore because he turned out to be a giant a-hole. But the point is, like, if that was a bioweapon, you missed your intended target, primarily, for the most part, that being MAGA. So how would you get at MAGA? Well, what's MAGA going to take if there's another pandemic? They're going to take ivermectin. So you really got to be careful where you source these type of drugs from, because it's not unheard of to poison a population, okay, either intentionally or unintentionally. It's not beyond the scope of possibilities. And so that's why I bring up the wellness company, because they're transparent. They have real doctors. You can actually call them. You mention my show, mention my name, they'll know exactly who I am. Let me throw them up on the screen here. Here we go. I've given up trying to be smooth with my show, so sorry for these abrupt transitions. But so this is the wellness company's site. You want to go to dailyclouthealth.com, and they have everything on here you could want. And I've been taking, they've been really helpful with a lot of things for me. So I found out recently my blood sugars are kind of in that pre-diabetic range. That's very scary. And I've gone to the wellness company for like the detox type stuff is great. Cleaning out your liver. I'll go in actually I want to get one of their doctors on here to talk about it, but they've been really helpful. And I called them. I was like, I'm a little worried. I got this pre-diabetic thing going on, and they got me on a ton of stuff that has actually brought my blood sugars down significantly. The one we have, I love this kit right here. Okay. This is the medical emergency kit. We have one of these in every house. Okay. Here's what I like about it is, especially if you live in New York or anywhere, because ticks apparently are everywhere. I actually researched that the other word. They're everywhere in the world. But here's what's inside the kit. Everything you need. Okay. So you got your amoxicillin, which is a broad spectrum antibiotic for serious infections. And again, these are things you normally have to go to the doctor to get. Okay. They will actually pre-prescribe all these, and they're all in the kit. And that's 28 tablets. Okay. I can't pronounce it. Acetamotricin, generic Z-Pack. The Z-Pack's great. I've taken Z-Pack. I still take it forever. It's especially great if you travel out. Doxycycline. Doxycycline is the best thing ever. We were using doxycycline in the military. Every time we went to Southeast Asia, you start taking your doxycycline about 10 days before you deploy. And I'll tell you what, man, that stuff, they'll triple the dose sometimes. Like we had one soldier get like a nasty venereal disease, and they didn't give him anything special. They just tripled his dose of doxycycline and wiped it out. The biggest thing doxycycline is popular for right now is tick-borne illnesses like Lyme disease. So if you get bit by a tick, you usually get 24 to 48 hours to get doxy in your system, which will pretty much, if you happen to get Lyme disease, it will knock it out. Okay. Here's why it's really important right now. Because I heard this from a cashier at Ollie's, which is great stuff cheap or whatever they are. But basically, it's a big clearance. Like I like that place, kind of like Marshalls, TJ Maxx, that same idea. But I was in there, and I like going in there because there's so much interesting cheap stuff. And I was talking to the checkout lady, and she was talking to someone else about her daughter got a tick bite. And this lady was saying, and then I got in on the conversation. She said she brought her daughter to the doctor to get doxycycline, and the doctor wouldn't give it to her, wouldn't prescribe it. She's like, why not? That's what we always get. We live in New York. We get bit by ticks almost every day, which is true. And the doctor said, well, I can't, and I don't know if this is true. I was eavesdropping, but she said the doctor wouldn't prescribe it until the daughter tried out some bullshit vaccine that they had to push on their patients first. Okay. So I'll just put it this way. We do get tick bites. Everyone gets them. They're everywhere. I don't want to be at the mercy of a doctor telling me I have to try some experimental vaccine just to fight off something that's easily fought off with doxycycline. So I'm glad to know I got about 300 tablets of doxycycline on hand all the time. Okay? Because when you only get 24 hours to stave off that disease, you want to get that stuff in your system right away. Because remember, you never know how long the tick has been there either. And you certainly don't want some doctor saying, well, you got to try Pfizer's new tick vaccine before we can give you the thing that we know works. You see what I mean? So that's why I like this kit, because it has all sorts of things, all sorts of things that you always need. All these things, there's your ivermectin right there. All of these things are the type of medications you tend to need often, and you always have to go to like the online doctor and do the 1 hour visit on the phone via telehealth and all that nonsense. Even me, and as a disabled combat veteran, to get prescriptions, I at least have to stream with my doctor, whereas like this is all pre-prescribed. They do screen you, they're real doctors, and but it's everything you need, so you don't have to go to the doctor for every little pill, and they give you a nice healthy amount of it. And so you see the price there, but if you do which is actually not that expensive considering how many tablets you get of each of these things. That's just one of the things there. They're bestsellers. I just love this company. I really do. You could buy things individually. They have a great news. The health guides are great. And every kit comes with a health guide too. And they actually answer the phone when you call them. Anyways, I won't keep going on and on. There's all the kits there. There's Dr. Kelly Victory. Love Peter McCullough, one of the best doctors in the world. Just go dailyclouthealth.com, use promo code dailyclout, and get $60 off and get free delivery. You will enjoy it. Oh, and their sleep aid is really good too. Really like that as well. And bookmark this site for dailyclouthealth.com. It's they're a great sponsor. I can't be happy enough with them. Okay. There we go. So, where are we? This is an amazing thing. I am disabled technically. Yes. I have a rating. Okay, and I have some issues I won't get into, but yeah, I'm a disabled combat veteran. 50% disabled. So I was in all airborne units, and I went to a lot of conflict zones because I was with 2 special forces units, and we tended to get more exposed to things even in the 90s than most of the regular army. So, but it is what it is. Let me see. Rifleman members. Yeah, I will certainly ask. I will see her tomorrow, and I'd call her tonight, but it's Shabbat. So, and then here's another one. When you think to go communist groupings, they still believe in COVID. Yeah, that's I really need to. I would love to do a roundtable with a bunch of psychologists to find out what is wrong with this. I mean, I've never seen such bad groupthink, and I think what James Lindsay said at the beginning applies across the board. Like propaganda that some of the most intelligent. That he's talking about the anti-Semitic propaganda. But propaganda in general, without going into detail, I worked at a high level in that field when I was working for government intelligence, not against Americans, because back then that was illegal. But really sophisticated covert influence, like I was doing, tended to only work on the masses that were not stupid, but like not really tuned into things. And it is sad to see propaganda working on people that are tuned into things for whatever reason. And, that's, it's just amazing. Like the kind of stuff we used to see on the left during COVID. Remember, Nettie, they get so mad, they get so mad if you said, are you, how dare you not take the vaccine? You're killing. Well, it's the same playbook, but now we see the fringe right or the wrong do it. And it blows my mind. I want to show you this. Like, yeah, let me call up. Let's got to call up this tweet here. Cause this is really bad. Okay. Okay, so here is we're talking about. Let me get to my replies because what I'm not really that interested in you seeing what I said. It's more the reaction that people had. Here we go. All right, so here, and this I'll pick on Christiane Deshay or whatever her name is. Okay, so so this is what the fringe is or the wrong right is pushing. Check this out. Kaiwan, you'll appreciate this. All right, so we're going to share the screen. Okay. All right, so here we are. So Emerald said, reminder, Epstein class still runs Congress. And then it's all this attacking no matter what. Okay. And I want to remind people too. Yeah, look, I want to see tons of prosecutions come out of the Epstein case, but let's face the facts. Some things are going to be hard to prove in terms of criminality. Other things have very powerful people who are lawyered up. Okay, that's not to say that prosecutions are not being pursued, but what happens is people have this sense like the FBI's like the Department of War. Like they could just launch a button and things happen. It's a lot more complicated than that. Look at this Lindsay Clancy case. She murdered and strangled her kids. That no one's doubting that. It's just going to trial. Look at Mangione. I still stand by my work on Mangione. It just seems there's less evidence, in my opinion, that Mangione did the killing of Brian Thompson than most cases, and that's an old case. But even if he pleads guilty, Mangione, it doesn't mean he did it. It means it's the best deal he got. And I'm not saying that for political reasons. I did some deep investigative work on this. I used to be a private investigator. I worked for many defense teams. I know what to look for. Case doesn't add up. But we'll revisit that. We owe an update on that. So I simply said, Epstein class, interesting term. See if you guys knew this. I said, who coined it? Ro Khanna. It then became a favorite of the Dems, and now the mother tuckers, my term I came up with. Who amplified it via the American Communist Party, led by Jackson Hinkle? Alexander Dugin, Putin's brain. So this week, you've quoted Lenin, RE as solution to what you see as the problems in this country, and that same week, you continue to throw around a term coined by one of the worst Dems and favored by the man known as Putin's brain. Feeling useful yet? She subsequently unfollowed me. And then, but I got all my, here's all the receipts. I'm not making it up. Okay, this was a bit much, but, and then check this out. This girl loses her shit over this. This is kind of funny. She says, all that bullshit doesn't make sense. I said that they're the Epstein class. They're above the law. They won't be prosecuted because there would be no one left in D.C. Stop defending pedophiles. I said, who are they? These are honest questions. Granted, I was needling her a bit, but like this girl, whoever she is. I said, define some demographics and what makes someone Epstein class. By the way, I think this is important too, because if you start just like with like so many movements, like what was the one, where men, just for being a man, you're like guilty of rape, or those kind of what is it? He said she, no, no, he said she said. But anyways, I said, you got to define Epstein class, because this will become like the Salem witch trials. Like anyone you don't like as a politician, you'll just say, oh, you're Epstein class, or oh, you were in the Epstein files. There's a lot of people in the Epstein files. My wife appears in the Epstein files. She told everyone about that 3 years before the Epstein files came out, but she worked for a agent who was friends with Epstein that had some of the biggest writers of our time. And so they'd plan these big public luncheons, and, I don't think she ever met Epstein, but like she may have. But like, these are very public kind of sponsored events. Peggy Siegel, who was Epstein's party planner, but is also the party planner for most of the social elites who can afford her in New York. I've been to many of Peggy Siegel's parties. Saw a lot of big stars. Doesn't mean I know them. And so that's the danger of this whole, like, creating labels like this. It's also the communists have done this throughout history. And so have the Nazis. Like, you create this, and trust me, being Epstein class is bad. Epstein's is hopefully burning in hell. But you have to be careful when you start saying everyone's Epstein class. Like she says, there'll be no one left in D.C. if they prosecute everyone. They won't be prosecuted because there'll be no one left in D.C. Really? So she's saying every politician is a pedophile? We can't possibly know that because they'd all be in jail or be... I mean, we don't know that. That's a sourceless claim. And yeah, as an investigator, I like to call these things out. I said, who are they? Define with some demographics what makes someone Epstein class. For extra credit, explain to me exactly how my reply to Emerald Robinson constitutes defending pedophiles. If you can do neither of these things with some sound reason, logic, and viable sources, then your reply is nothing but social media graffiti. Get to work, I'll wait. Kaz a little bit of an asshole, I'll admit, but... Then she said, same Epstein clients that Trump said he would arrest, then changed his mind about just like the rest of you. You see, this is what, whether this girl realizes or not, she's getting caught up in. This is groupthink type phrasing here. And it's very dangerous when people start saying the rest of you and us, the rest of you and us. It's very dangerous. So she says, same Epstein clients that said he would arrest. Again, I'm pretty sure Trump didn't say he'd arrest anyone. He's not law enforcement. Well, I guess he's the chief executive, but, then changed his mind about, we don't know if he changed his mind. We don't know the whole case. We haven't seen all the files because the case is still being investigated. Just like the rest of you. Like, I don't even know what that means. And I don't even know how I'm humoring this person. I think I was bored. I said, I'm an Epstein client. That's news to me. Care to name the rest of you, or is this just another drive-by? Thinking before you post is free. Looking foolish isn't Christiane. Now, Christiane, if she's ever sees this, don't engage with someone like me. If obviously I'm just engaging you to see what you'll say. Honestly, I don't really care what you say because you're not saying anything with sources. And if you don't source the things you say, unless you're saying good morning, I don't really care because it's just your opinion, uninformed opinion. You know what? I'll help. You're clearly, I'm a simpleton right now. I know. You're clearly having trouble. Trump said he would arrest the Epstein clients, and then he changed his mind. Which Epstein clients? Epstein had legitimate clients. They weren't all pedophiles, I'm sure. Like, he was a money manager. I mean, what does that mean? You sound very meticulous about words here. Then all of his supporters changed their minds about arresting the Epstein clients. I haven't changed my mind. I'm letting the process work. Certainly haven't changed my mind. You even said, who are they? Meaning them. If I was talking, I don't understand what she's saying. If I was talking to what? Okay. But the point I'm making here is there's no way I have to explain it to you, especially with how vocal you are. If you didn't understand. And now, guys, remember, my entire thing here was using a label, not about Epstein's guilt or innocence. So we're anchored to that. You're clearly in trouble. There's no way I have to explain it to you at this point, especially with how vocal you are. You didn't understand. You could have just said so. The Epstein class being the people that raped, abused, purchased, etc. kids from Epstein yet faced no consequences. I agree with this. I don't think she understands what Trump was saying when he said it was a Democratic hoax, though. So the Democratic hoax Trump wasn't referring to Epstein and his crimes. He was referring to the Democrats saying that Trump was the chief, client or whatever they were saying. That's the Democratic hoax. Trump doesn't always complete the sentence the way I'd like him to, but that's what he meant. And I said, well, it sounds like you don't really have any thoughtful answers. This is usually the case when people say, I don't have to explain this to you. And that normally means I don't know, or I don't know and am too lazy to give it any thought despite shouting about it without any comprehension of what it means. Then she comes back. She says, no, there's no way I have to explain to you at this point. There's no way you don't know this by now. I then proceeded to explain to you, you're not very bright for someone who's insulting my intelligence. And I just ended it with, right enough to insult your intelligence. And she said, and get it completely wrong. Good job, kiddo. Mom would be proud. Get what wrong? See, so the point I'm making here is people are just like, this whole thing is in defense of her favorite pundit, but the level of emotion, this is just a little. Like the level we're seeing now is like, I had another one. I don't know if I could find it. Like people just losing their minds when you just simply say, hey, can I have a source for that? Can I have this? Can I have that? They're losing their minds. And that's a bad place to be. Bad place to be. This one's pretty light. It's actually quite entertaining. But the point is, we're seeing this now where like people, like the Candace followers, holy moly. Like, have you ever seen the reactions you get when you question Candace Owens? Her followers lose their minds. Okay? In history, we've seen what happens when people start following bad leadership or bad influencers. They start going crazy because what's happened is they've married themselves to the lie. It may have started as entertainment, but now they've married themselves to it. That's why Candace still has a large audience. And it's too painful for them to, even when faced with the obvious truth that Candace is full of it, they can't let it go because that would mean they're wrong. Okay, and for the lower level people, they can just peel off and no one will notice. But what Candace did, which is really dark but pretty smart, is she's elevated people within the ranks. So she brought up the village crazy lady, this chick named Melissa Witt, who's attacked me on several occasions, where she says, okay, oh, look, Mel, the village crazy lady, found this great information. She's a great follow. Make sure you do that. Oh, look at this. I mean, she created Ian Carroll. He was nothing without Candace. And so it creates this infrastructure of insanity. Hashtag infrastructure of insanity. And they can't let it go because their entire identity, their entire economy, in some people's cases, is based off a lie. But here's the problem. Eventually, reality comes crashing in. Okay. And when reality comes crashing in, usually it's the person who doesn't have a chair when the music stops that gets it the worst. Candace will be shuffling in another direction, I guarantee, long before the end of that trial of Tyler Robinson, because there's no evidence supporting her theories. I've looked at the case files. It's a pretty solid case. Yeah, you could say, well, the government planted that evidence. You can say that. But if you don't have evidence to that effect, or you could say the Israelis did it, but there's no evidence to that. And Candace, on her recent debate with Andrew, I forgot his name, admitted it, that she had no evidence of Israeli involvement. I think Tim Pool said it the other day where he said, if it were me, I would have just gone up and walked away. The debate's over. And it's true. And it's interesting watching that debate because, yeah, I mean, that Andrew guy should have known the charges, but I don't think that's that big of a deal, because that wasn't the core of the debate. The debate was him asking her, he paid her $300,000, asking her, to produce some evidence of her, prove her theories, and she can't prove any of them. But the crazy part about like the whole thing is that like what they do, and this used to be just like the really fringe flat earther people, and I've run into these people where they'll say, "How do I?" They'd find out I was in the Intel community. It's on my LinkedIn. And they'd say, well, how do I know you're not an assassin? I'd say, well, because I'm not an assassin and you're still alive. Well, how do I know you weren't sent to kill me? Well, you called me. I've had clients say this to me, like, I'm like, well, you called me. I've never heard of you. And then they're like, well, yeah, but I bet they train you to say that. I'm like, oh my God. Or, the Israelis did it. How do you know the Israelis did it? Well, because they would want to kill Charlie Kirk, for instance. And I always ask, well, why would they want to kill Charlie Kirk? Well, because he wasn't going to support Israel anymore. And I'd say, okay, let's say that was the case. There's no evidence of that, but let's say that was the case. Doesn't it still help them to have Charlie Kirk pulling young people away from the left who are anti-Israel all the way? And they never have an answer for that. I mean, the logic and reason tests just never play out on these things, but that's not the point. The point is, just as the audience is starting to, solve these logic puzzles, Candace will introduce something totally new. I'm using her as an example. Totally new. Tucker Carlson does it too. Now he's saying nuclear weapons were invented by space aliens or something like that. And they throw these things in. And the way they present it, they show you a lot and they tell you nothing. Okay? They show you a lot and they tell you nothing. And they keep moving the theories, shifting the theories, so you can never really drill down into one. It's almost like what X does to your brain. Like if you scroll on X all day, you don't even remember why you went on. Have you ever done this? You go on to find like a DM or a tweet you made, and then an hour later, you're going down some rabbit hole. Well, that's what they do with their shows. They're constantly throwing new rabbit holes in front of you. And then what Candace does is like she'll say, oh, you know what, my mommy detectives, you're going to find that out for me. Can someone reach out and do this? She's constantly giving little tasks. Okay, that's literally how you control people. Literally how you control people. That's how cult leaders do it. That's how, the Mao regime did it. It's like you bring people up, and then anyone that turns against you, you eviscerate very publicly, which keeps the other people in line. So now they have a positive reinforcement and a negative one. Whereas like the positive reinforcement is Candace is going to elevate me more. She's going to tell more people to follow my site. Maybe I'll start making good money on my site. The negative one is I better not go against her because look what happened to those other people. Now, granted, she's not executing them, but reputation-wise, she is on social media if you go against her. Not that she has that much impact, but she does when all her people turn against you, or then there's always the crazy ones that might try to show up at your door. And that should never be a reason for people not to speak out against these crazy people. But do understand that when you do, you're going to have crazy people to deal with. But take it from an old pro of dealing with crazy people, it's manageable. It's manageable. I mean, I always, have safety measures in place. Don't be afraid to pull the trigger if you have to defend your home, but it's manageable. Okay. And it doesn't matter what people say online anymore about anyone, because there's just so much moving. There's so much information moving, so many overlapping, competing, crazy theories about everything that like everything gets lost in the shuffle. It used to be like the 15-minute nation. Now we're like the 5-second nation. Okay. Okay. Well, let me catch up. I love these comments, by the way. Let me stop sharing that. Okay, let's do more comments. The reason is money. Totally agree. Communism is evil. Totally agree. Great 2-volume book called The Spectre of Communism. Think about it. Communism is the first thing to ever get globalized almost simultaneously before technology. I always say communism is like Legion. It reminds me so much of Legion, like in the Bible, the Legion of Demons, that we are one. I am Legion, we are one, or however it was said. That's what communism. Plus, communism really, I think it's almost worse than fascism, because communism, like fascism, attacks the body and kills you. Communism, before it kills you physically, it kills you spiritually. It takes away creativity, individuality, all the things that make us human. It strips us of those things, and then it kills you. That's why I think it's the truest evil. If the devil exists, the devil is communism, in my opinion, because it acts just like the devil, except it acts as a mass, like a specter. Have you ever watched Kay Griggs' interview? She said she was a deep state wife, 1998 8-hour interview. Most of it sounds true, pretty disgusting. I'll write it down and check it out. I'd be curious to check it out to see how they define the deep state, because to say you're a deep state wife, I mean, yeah, I'll check it out. I'm always curious how people define deep state. Obviously, there's a deep state, but what is it? It's not an organized star chamber. I don't think people work in concert. I just think there's parallel motivations at different levels that all move in the same direction because they're all heading towards similar goals. And some of those goals are good and some are bad. Or some are non-empathetic, or they don't care about the casualties along the way to get to a goal. So yeah, I'll read it. Let me see. 1998 8-hour interview, Kay Griggs. Just writing that down. Okay. Got it. Thanks. That's a good... Done, Nettie. All right. Next comment here. That's amazing. The audience has like tripled since we started, and it's late too. That's okay. I love the night shows. I really do. I went through Dr. Wolf's Epstein files. There's nothing. No, of course there's not. I mean, she was the first. She actually put it out like with BuzzFeed back when they were still in existence. But she worked with that journalist down there in Florida that broke the case open wide enough where they had to do something that kind of led to the arrest. And but yeah, she put that out publicly a long time ago. She actually fired her agent the minute everything came to light and Epstein was arrested. She fired her longtime agent that she started her career with immediately. She wanted nothing to do with it, and encouraged a lot of other writers she knew to do the same, and sadly a lot of them stayed. That's, I won't name names, but it's like, it's pretty telling when people, either they're too scared to leave or they've done something that makes them too scared to leave. But yeah, she didn't hesitate. She was like unbelievable. And there's the whole story there that, before that, proposing a Weinstein book, and, she got ghosted by this agent. It's all bad. It's all really bad. I'm just glad she didn't get, caught up in that. I mean, they've been long before it, but it's just, the whole thing is just, it really kind of, I think the Epstein files, the whole Epstein thing is so intriguing for even me, because I think it's, for a lot of people, it's the first real look. It's almost like we look behind the curtain, we could see that other world we always knew was out there, that dark, disgusting world of powerful elites, and we got a glimpse of it. Okay, and I think and rightfully so, I think that's why people are and should stay obsessed with this. I just don't think they should let their obsession with the Epstein files be manipulated into political weaponization. That's my thing. For me, it's all about investigate it till the end and hunt them all down. Totally agree. But make sure this is one of those cases, the Epstein files, where you really have to do your sourcing. Like, you really can't make sweeping statements like Christian Deshay. Great name, by the way. You can't, because you need to know what you're looking at. There's so many things that happen with these files where they got released, and, some of the names in there are from FBI notes. Some people called Epstein's or the hotline and said, "Oh, this guy raped me." It's like after the fact. Like, they have to run all those leads down. Like, someone could be in the Epstein files just because they were the next door neighbor. And let me put it this way: if you ever do a poll on, let's say, like, been verified, one of the basic ones, But if you do like one of the more professional polls like TransUnion or Thomson Reuters Clear, which are these big 40-page bulks of info, aggregate info, you're going to get in those, just pulling that, you're going to get hundreds of names as listed as possible associates or associates. Now, what does that mean? In a lot of cases, it means they have the same phone number separated by two people because it got reassigned. Sometimes it could be that they have very close social security numbers. Sometimes it could be that they bought the house that the other person sold, or they bought the house that the other person sold from the other person who sold it. Possible associates are like 2 to 3 degrees of separation. Associates are 1 degree of separation. But even an associate in official, like, kind of data pulls like that, an associate could be, you know, you have overlapping addresses for a PO box. That makes you an associate. But it doesn't take into consideration information creep. So, for instance, when you do aggregation of data, a lot of things creep, like the dates get smudged, or when they're doing the data entry, if it's put in handwriting by a clerk, the courthouse then digitizes their files. It could misread it. I mean, I see that a lot. Okay. I usually, when I pull people's social up by their social, I'll see like 5 names attached to it. Doesn't always mean they're the same people. Sometimes it's normally like information creep. So you got to consider all these things. So yeah, you know, definitely people should keep investigating it. The reason why all the files of the Epstein files were not released is because a lot of things are still under investigation. And they made that clear right on the FBI website. Are they lying to us? They could be, but I have no evidence that they are. So I have to just take their word for it and look at the files I have access to. That's the best thing people can do. But we have to get away from this. Well, you're Epstein class because you don't agree with me. That's just stupid. It's stupid. And, you know, Christiane Deshay, wittingly or unwittingly, has been manipulated, and she must know that. Okay, I don't know who this person is, but when you're saying such stupid things that are unsourced, you're being manipulated. When I talk to young people who think the DSA is just a more creative version of the Democrats, someone actually said that to me, a guy with an MBA, smart guy, nice guy, and I looked at him, and rather than argue it, I said, have you ever been to their website? And he's like, well, no, but I mean, why would I have reason to doubt it? I said, well, you didn't, but now you do. I just left it at that. So yeah, I mean, with all these cases, it's like, if you are saying something emotional in the moment, to me, you're reacting to me and you're emotional about it, and you can't find sources. If you take the time to source things and you can't find sources, you're probably being manipulated. If I get really mad about something, let's say I get really mad about, I don't know, pick a topic. I get really mad about, I'm having trouble thinking of any topic right now. Okay. Let's say I get really mad about the WNBA not letting Royce White in because he's black. Now, I haven't researched that. I haven't got that, but someone told me that. I'm not a researcher, it's hypothetical. And I'm like, that is messed up. They need to let him in. They can't just not let him in because he's black. And then I let myself get spun up in this. And then I'm posting about it and everything like that. And I never do the research. I might find out that they barred him from entering the WNBA because he's a man. You know, that's a great case. They're not going to be able to. He's doing a really good job with that. If you follow the WNBA story, but you see my point, like, or like I'm really dead set on the fact that the Iraq War, for instance, great example. We went in there because legitimately, because we knew Iraq had nuclear weapons and yellow cake. Okay. And then I'm faced with the evidence that that's all bullshit. Like, they didn't. There was no evidence ever found. I got 2 choices. Just say, hey, you know what? Turns out I was wrong. That's the best choice you can make. And then you start researching. Or you could take the other one and say, well, they probably had the evidence. Oh, well, I don't know. Who are your sources? Well, we have multiple sources. How do we know we can trust them? People will forget that you made a mistake, and they'll respect you more when you come back with research that either supports part of both yours or creates entire new lines of inquiry. They don't respect you when you just make these stupid statements like, well, that's what they trained you to say, or yeah, but we don't know the evidence they had. Like, they're probably lying. We don't know. Only talk about what you know and what you can prove, and you'll never sound stupid. Like, unfortunately, hopefully Christiane Deshay figures that out. And why is it important not to sound stupid? Because some people are going to listen to you, okay? You're influencing someone. Doesn't matter who you are, someone looks up to you. So you better have your facts straight, or you're going to create little monsters and big monsters and full-grown monsters. And that's why it's so important to investigate everything like we do on this show. That's enough of my soapbox. All right, let me see here. Absolutely no interest in Candace. Nettie, honestly, I don't either. I don't either, but I went on to my very good friend Drax's space, and him and Kay Daly. Really love those two. And I just went on because I just wanted to listen to people talk. It's good background noise, and I always like getting a pulse of people everywhere, and I like spaces for that. And I didn't notice the title was the Candace Andrew debate. And I got a mic, and I didn't ask for one, but Drax knows me, so he gives me a mic, and I'm like, first thing he asked, hey, did you watch the debate? I'm like, hey, honestly, I didn't. I saw some clips. So I really don't want to comment on it. And he understood, but then I was like, well, all right, in case I'm there again, I guess I should, if I'm going to ever talk about it or it comes up, I should listen to it. But then when I saw the Candace supporters saying, oh, she wiped the floor with him, it's like, okay, now I got to know. Because then I saw the other side saying, oh, he wiped the floor with her. So it was 3 excruciating days it took me to get through the 3-hour debate, because honestly, I just can't stand her. She just reminds me of arguing with a 12-year-old. And I was like, well, it wasn't even really a debate, in my opinion. It was, honestly, it was I thought she was extremely immature and pouty. I thought he did a good job. I've never heard of the guy before, but I thought he did a really good job keeping his cool. I would have been a lot meaner, but I always like seeing how people debate and what their arguments are. What blows my mind about that is no one with a intelligent cell in their brain could ever think that Candace won that debate. And also, how do you gauge who won the debate? What are the rules of the debate? In my opinion, he set out to get her to back her theories, and she can't. That tells me he won the debate. That's it. But for me, the debates are more about how people are messaging things. And so, yeah, I hear you, Nettie. But I had to put myself through it, and it did take 3 days, because I'd be driving, and I'm like, I don't really want to waste my nice, relaxing. I love driving. I don't want to waste my nice, relaxing drive on this. I really don't. I've got Prince's greatest hits, Max Richter. I mean, I just don't want Candace's voice in my head when I'm trying to relax. So yeah, I had to grind it out, though. I did it, and yeah, it was what I thought it was. If someone had a book coming out if Epstein went to a movie in theaters, the actors and actresses movies, that's interesting. So basically, you're saying if someone had a book coming out, or if Epstein went to a movie in theaters, the actors and absolutely, and you saw the files. It's literally or you're in the files because you went to a Peggy Siegel event, even though it had nothing to do with Epstein, but because she was planning parties for him, then you're in the files. Or if the FBI wrote down, hey, we should look into the other 28 people in this high rise, you're going to be in the files. You see what I mean? So or you could be a journalist. There were a lot of things in the Epstein files of people sending him news articles, and the journalist in that news article or the subject of that news article is in the Epstein files. So it could be like, Emmett Smith, because that'd be about the time frame, runs 10 yards for a touchdown. Emmett Smith will be in the files. I'm not sure if Emmett Smith was in the files in the bad way, but you see, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Candace is entertaining, but she does circles. I used to think she was entertaining. I did. Like right through the whole, I don't know what you call it, penis gate, whatever the French president wife thing was. I found it entertaining, but I don't know. There's something like with the Charlie Kirk thing where the hatred in that girl really comes out. It's hard to listen to. Like I used to find it entertaining. I found it to be bullshit. Just like I used to find Alex Jones to be entertaining. I didn't believe everything he said, but I found it entertaining. Lots of people like that. But then when there's something changes, I think, when people take money or they have a mental break. And when you start seeing the real hatred in them, the real evil in them, it's not entertaining anymore. It just almost feels like poison going to my ears, polluting my brain and my heart and my soul. So yeah, man, I don't find her entertaining anymore. Honestly, I'd rather have my gums scraped. It's just, and I'm not being mean. I just I cannot stand that level of vitriol and hatred for different people. A lot of people she doesn't even know. And it's a pandemic of its own where Candace's hate and her darkness is starting to become the characteristics of her fans. And I can't deal with it. It's like, I don't want that around me. And she ceased being useful for any sort of information. I know her game. I know her messaging. There's no reason for me to even, do that. The only, like I said, the only reason I listen to it is because if my good friends call me back on again and want to talk about it, I at least want to say, I listened to it. Just like I watched every Michael Moore movie. They were tough to get through. Thought Bowling for Columbine was pretty good. But most of them are just crappy propaganda. But I always make a point to watch things that I might have to debate with or argue with people on the other side that I can run into. So yeah. Candace is a brilliant orator. She is not a detective. Definitely not a detective. Definitely not a detective. She is a good orator. I would even say she's a good propagandist. Like she could probably sell, the Brooklyn Bridge to people because the pause, the meter, everything. By the way, I think I figured out, and you heard it here first, I think. What is her name? But yeah, so I think I figured out where she gets her podcasting style, like the way she talks and the way she let me pull it up. The way she delivers her podcast. And it hit me. So I used to only listen to like true crime podcasts. Like that's what Sword and Scale and True Crime Junkie and all these. And I've actually started listening to them again. It's sad, but true crime is like a break from geopolitics. And I listened to those because I was doing detective work. So like right up until 2019, I could care less about geopolitics. I mean, I did care when I was in the intel community, but I had, a gap where I went into private intelligence. Actually, when I left government work around 2013, 2014. And then I got into private intelligence. So doing a lot of geopolitical type of competitive intelligence-based analysis or protecting CEOs from hostile government-backed companies. I mean, that's the kind of work I still do. But I wasn't paying attention to domestic politics or, the political side of anything. So I got into true crime podcasts for long drives. I found it interesting. But I went back and listened to Crime Junkie the other day, and it hit me. I was like, holy moly. And Crime Junkie was out way before Candace Owens. But she delivers her content the way Ashley Flowers, the host of Crime Junkie, delivers hers. Almost down to the syllable, the way she delivers it, the pauses. It's like she's taken that style which is interesting because it would make sense that Candace, if she wanted to gain traction in the podcast space, would look to true crime because it's the top category in podcasting and across the board for a long time. And Crime Junkie is the number one true crime podcast, and it has been for many, many years. And go and listen sometime to Crime Junkie, and you'll see what I mean. And it's on like everything. So just you guys should check that out, but especially like the later, like the mid episodes, but like it did hit me that she sounds like she's almost mimicking Ashley Flowers, the host of Crime Junkie. And here's the podcast I'm talking about. I mean, I'd play some for you, but I don't think it's gonna like matter. Like, I don't know. I don't want to because it's getting late. But check this out and tell me what you think. Like, I think she took, and that's fine. I mean, people, learn a podcast by mimicking other people. People act that way too. People sing by mimicking sometimes, but it does seem like Candace like totally adopted Ashley Flowers' style, which has that effect of hooking people in. Like, you listen to Ashley Flowers and you're like, what? No, don't go to the commercial. I want to know what happens. She's like, wait till you see what happens next. And you're like, what happens? What happens, Ashley Flowers? And it keeps you coming back for more. Candace kind of does the same thing. Like, well, on the next, blah, 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 next episode. Okay, I'm going to play some. Let me see here. If one will call up without me having to download anything, I will play it. Let's see if it works. Oh, yeah, there we go. All right, so just listen to the voice. Tell me what you think. And let me check the comments before I go too far on that. I know man who's... yeah, we'll get there in a second. I see you, Nettie. We'll get there. All right, tell me if this delivery style of a podcast sounds familiar.
What if finding the missing person didn't answer the mystery? What if it only made it stranger? In a new Audio Check limited series, The Truth About Natalie, host Sean Kipe investigates the disappearance and death of 27-year-old Natalie Jones. What starts as a missing persons case uncovers allegations of abuse, incident, or did someone tell her that she was going to take her shopping? No problem, right? Peggy Stevenson.
All right, listen. This is Ashley Flowers. It sounds just like Candace Owens. Ashley was out before Candace. I can shut my camera off for just a second, but I'm still here.
May 29th, 2011 is a hot Sunday in Florence, Kentucky. And that's also Memorial Day weekend. Many people have the next day off, so their Sunday routines are changing a bit. Family get-togethers, a day at the lake, maybe a road trip to get out of town. But not for Beth Victor, because even though she plans to take her daughter to do some shopping to celebrate her graduation, they're still going to church first. Sunday always means church for their family. That was ingrained in Beth by her own parents, Bill and Peggy Stevenson. But when Beth and her family take their seats in the pews, her 74-year-old parents aren't there. And she knows that something is up immediately. Bill's a deacon and Peggy plays the organ. They are there every single Sunday, like clockwork. So when the service starts, it's not just Beth who is like looking around trying to see what's going on. The whole congregation notices their absence. And I can imagine Beth just like sneaking glances at the door.
Okay. So that's Ashley Flowers, great podcaster. Big fan. Now, let's just for comparison, let's go ahead and pull a Candace Owens episode. And you know what? Let me pull it up on like audio only to do a fair comparison here. There we go. Okay, here we go. Let's see if... Okay, there we go. Apple Podcasts. See if she's got Spotify here. Just looking for it. Oh my gosh, she had Theo Von on. Okay. Oh my gosh. You know, guys, I just want to point this out. I pulled it up on Spotify and it gave me the Russian version. And that has nothing to do with my settings. Weird. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find, and if I can't find it, I'll just play the video. Okay, give me a second here. Candace Owens, Spotify. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to go way down. I just want to go back. Okay, we're going to go back to 2024. Nine-year-old rapper. I'm done being threatened. Okay, here we go. So we're going to do this one. And this is from 2024, and I think the Ashley Flowers one I played is 2024 as well, I think. Okay, so let's do Ashley again, just so you know. Okay, we're going to share this tab. I mean, not that it matters. I just think it's interesting that I'm pretty sure she pulled her style for podcasting from Ashley Flowers.
Expecting them to sneak in at some point during the sermon, but they never do. And after it wraps up, people are coming up to Beth asking if she knows anything. And this is when she learned that it wasn't just this service that was missed. So her dad, Bill, had this like truck stop ministry where...
Okay. Now, this is Candace Owens. Oh, come on.
I've been sleeping on my new ThermoBalance Elite mattress from Brooklyn Bedding for a few weeks now, and I can honestly say it's lived up to my expectation. That's brooklynbedding.com and promo code.
That means a $100 trade pays out over from those mentioned. And filler that these young people are getting. Well, she ended up just leaving social media because she felt bullied and upset. And I want to say that after looking into the story, conservatives were at the very least misinformed regarding the photos, and she is maybe owed an apology. All that and more today coming up on Candace Owens. It just sounds too whacked out to believe that somebody intentionally killed Michael Jackson. Of course, why would they do that? And also, I was believing the media. The media was extensively saying every single day.
All right, well, you get the idea. I think she is mimicking the style of Ashley Flowers. That's how she she did change her presentation when she left the Daily Wire. So it does make sense that she would research the top category for podcasts, which is true crime, and land on Ashley Flowers, who's the top podcaster in the top category. Doesn't matter, but it's kind of interesting, I think. Okay. Guys, I should probably go to bed. Oh, Roscoe. Brian, were you ever wearing a maroon shirt? Well, yeah, I did. I've worn maroon shirts, but I only wore those when I was flying my plane in Egypt. Yes, my maroon shirt. I also do hand signals too a lot, which means I'm indicating to my fellow assassins to take someone out. Candace entertaining. Nettie, that's funny. You had better not be an assassin. Haha. I have been poisoned 9 times here in communist Japan. Stalked, watched 24/7, literally. I believe you. I think I got roofied at a party not too long ago. I made it out of there because I was at this. I was actually at a party that you guys would think was deep state, like is a good friend of mine, but it was like really went to a screening, and then we went to this insanely awesome penthouse in Lower Manhattan, And I mean, it looked like a museum in there. It's one of the cooler places I've been to. And it, I don't know what happened. I mean, I can hold my liquor, but holy moly, I had like 2 drinks and I don't remember getting home. How I got the Uber, I have no idea. How I didn't get mugged once I got back to Brooklyn, I have no idea. I don't even remember getting into bed, and I've been roofied before, and it's just like my joints ached and my head ached. It's crazy. So yeah, I think I've been poisoned too. No, I'm not an assassin. Not at all. You cannot be a believer and a communist. Thank you, right? Marxists and communists are atheists. Actually, officially, the communist government of China is an atheist government. It says it in their constitution or whatever they call it. So you're right, which is interesting. But see, the whole Muslim, like Red Green Alliance people, that's the Russians have used the Arabs for years. I mean, for forever. To try to get a foothold of power there. Don't forget they were trying to like own Afghanistan. Okay, and we kind of armed the Taliban, who back then were the Mujahideen, to stop them. But yeah, like Russia playing in the Middle East and being a big player there is nothing new. I mean, why do you think Syria's Assad fled to Russia where he currently lives now? Okay, so yeah, but the communists, like the Soviets could use the Arabs because they had military might, so they never really had to worry about like backlash. The Democratic Socialists of America getting in bed with actual Muslim terrorists who are in this country. Me and JJ Carroll, when we had Unrestricted Invasion show, that's all we talked about was who was coming in. And there's some heavy duty people who've come in, like, and are still at large in this country. We're talking like old school, original gangster type of Al-Qaeda colonels who came in under the Biden administration and still are not accounted for. Okay. And like I said in the show back then, when you're going to do an attack, the first people that come in is intelligence, to gather intelligence, obvious. The second that come in are your foot soldiers. They get in place. The third that come in are your propagandists and your agents provocateur. The last people to come in are the generals, and the generals look like they came in like 2024. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet. And the DSA playing footsie with some of these people are hardcore. They don't even realize it. Some of the people in the DSA are hardcore. I've got to get so many incomplete episodes. I did some research on some of the splinter groups that I saw just on campaign posters in Brooklyn. And some of them are tied to like massive terrorist attacks in Brooklyn, in New York, in the early 80s and everything. Unbelievable. And with the Soviets, they could do that. And if need be, like they did, they had, basically when the Soviet Union expanded, there were like hundreds of mosques. And then what the Soviets did is over time, they just banned the teaching of religion in schools. And basically the children, the second generation Muslims, kind of forgot about Islam. And then, in the 90s, Islam, I guess in the late 80s, Islam in the Soviet Union was known as an old man's religion. They almost completely wiped it out. It's kind of reversed now, but the DSA, do you guys think these soy boys and these kind of overweight women with the purple hair are going to be able to control them? I don't think so. Brian, were you ever wearing a maroon shirt? LOL. Oh yeah, we saw that one. Sorry. Yeah, it was all bullshit, totally. Excruciating is a way oh my god. The way she mispronounces some things. She kept saying miles per an hour. I'm like, does she just do it on purpose? Like miles per an hour. It's like, oh my god. I'm actually interested in true crime, Crime Z. The Lizzie Borden case is my most recent obsession. I think Lizzie Borden was in Massachusetts, right? You guys want me to do a Lizzie Borden case? I could do some true crime because honestly, like, I love informing you guys about geopolitics, and I know a lot about it from my work. But I find true crime fascinating. Yeah, Fall River Yeah, Fall River, Massachusetts. Hey, you know what I'll do? Nettie, I'll make you a promise. I will go to the Lizzie Borden house. I don't think it's that far away, and I'll take a bunch of pictures and post some. How's that sound? I'll do it. Columbine was staged. Show me the facts, Nettie. Show me the facts. Show me your sources. And I'm not saying you're right or wrong. Show me your sources. I know a man who is in Israel intelligence, a pretty stupid man. He called me names for years because I am against vaccines. I know a lot of people in the intelligence field that are pretty stupid, but then again, I know a lot of people in lots of fields that are pretty stupid. Look, guys, intelligence, you know what intelligence work is? At its core, intelligence work is gathering information on a target that you know little about, trying to fill in the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and what next. It's honestly just like being an investigative journalist. So let's put it this way. In the CIA, they have case officers. People call those spies. Those are not the actual spies. They have case officers. Those are the guys and girls on the field. The CIA is built around them. Their job is to go to other countries and recruit human assets or human intelligence assets to bring them information. Okay, so basic example of this. You go to East whatever stand, you're a case officer, you've been trained to recruit people, basically. And you say, okay, we're going to find out who... Oh, here's a better example. You're going to take Maduro out. You need to find out the guard shifts and everything like that. You know, a case officer will try to find someone who knows a guard or knows the schedule. You pay that person. They inform. Now you got to get other assets to confirm what that one asset is saying, because if you're paying someone to give you intelligence, they're going to give you intelligence. That's just been my experience. So you get multiple sources in a perfect world. That intelligence is then fused with signals intelligence and with OSINT and with MASINT and all the different IMINT. And from there, you can say, okay, based on these multiple disciplines of intelligence, we're fairly certain that this window here is the right time to strike because imagery intelligence tells us there's the least amount of guard vehicles on the south lawn. Human intelligence has confirmed these hours are when the guards shift over. Signals intelligence has shown a decrease in, phone calls going in and out, pizzas being ordered at that time frame. MASINT measures and signature intelligence shows a reduction in the vibrations and the electromagnetic output from communications devices during that same time too. That's the time we strike. That's how intelligence works. But on the stupid thing, there's stupid people in intelligence, just like any job, and just because it's called intelligence doesn't mean everyone's Jack Ryan. There's some people, their whole job is to sort frequencies and put them in a spreadsheet. Some people's job is to constantly, review the enterprise architecture of the National Signals Intelligence Plan. These are all real jobs. And the reason why is intelligence is compartmentalized. Okay, meaning, let's say I'm working at the NSA, okay, and my job is to record every time and every transmission that comes in on this band of frequencies. We're going kind of old school here, okay, or these phone numbers. I do that. I get the media over IP or the voice over IP file. I see it pop up. Now, a lot of times I can't even hear it. I just take that, put it in its appropriate place. It goes down the chute. That's it. I move on to the next thing. I have no idea where that's going. In another segment of that intelligence chain, someone is saying, okay, we've got increased activity here. Let's put this in a report that says increased activity on this frequency, this frequency, this frequency. They send out their report. Okay, that would be a TAC ELINT or anyways, I probably shouldn't say all the names, but most people in the intelligence community, regardless of the agency, have no idea what happens outside the silo they're assigned to. That's why, for me, I could always tell when people are bullshitting who may have worked in the intelligence community when they know so much. Okay, so I saw this one guy, I forgot his name, I'll call him out, but he's talking about things like, he was like supposedly mid-level, and he's talking about 15 disciplines of intelligence that he was involved in. And I'm like, well, that's not how it works. Everything's compartmentalized. The only people that would have that bird's eye view of everything that's happening would be, at the director level, at the division leadership level, at the directorate level, at, maybe the, OD&I level, even like Joe Kent, who saw a lot of intelligence, because NCTC is a fusion center, okay, and it was put in place after 9/11, so there'd be no more silos of intelligence. So but again, he's getting intelligence as the NCTC director, but he doesn't know why that intelligence was collected and for what original purpose. He just knows, we have intelligence that fits in this category. There's a case over here that might need this intelligence. I'm going to make sure they know we have it. That's what the NCTC does. They don't investigate Charlie Kirk's murder and all that other nonsense he said. And you can see all this on their website too, but that's how intelligence works. So you could see with that kind of compartmentalization, you don't always have to be highly intelligent to be in the intelligence field. You have to have a clearance, okay, or get get run for a clearance. But to have the government spend that kind of money on you, you have to have a pretty good resume, okay, if you're going in entry level, okay, and like me, I came out of the military with the TSSCI clearance, speaking Arabic with 4 degrees. I used my time wisely in the military with 11 years of military intelligence experience and 27 different Middle East, Far East countries, Southeast Asian countries. I was a really good package for people to hire after 9/11, and that's why it was easy for me to get jobs. Really easy. But again, some people would just get hired because they had the clearance. And there was a joke around the Beltway. Sometimes you'd be working with someone and you're thinking, how did this person even get here? And we used to say, well, they must be one of those CAP people. And what CAP stands for is clearance and a pulse. Okay, because that's what they need. They need to put butts in seats. Okay, and if they can't put butts in seats at the government level, they have to contract those seats out. I went the contractor route because it paid more money and it gave me more freedom to move around the intelligence community based on the contracts my company had. Same access, same work, different person's paying you, and you're not locked into like a government career path. Okay. So, but again, especially in the high time of clearances, which was like right after 9/11 to like 2000, right up until like 2011 or 12, I'd say. If you had a clearance, you're getting a job. It's going to be 6 figures, full benefits. It just was the way it was. So, they overhired so much during that time that there's a great book called Top Secret America that lays all this out. That in the Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC area, there were enough clearances active that for every 2.5 people, there was the equivalent of 1 clearance in that place. That's how many clearances are running around. So yeah, you didn't have to be that smart to get in. I like to consider myself very smart, but a lot of people I worked with pretty freaking stupid. It's just the way. But I think that's any profession. You could be book smart, but you could be like just stupid too. So I hear you, Nettie. Okay, and then, yep. Okay, yeah, we talked about the. Oh, no, I met an Israeli intel guy at the synagogue in Kobe, Japan. I've been to Kobe; it's a great place. A number of years ago, his wife told me she doesn't believe in God, but used to go to synagogue because of her husband. She's also from Israel. Yeah, secular Jew. That's not uncommon. And you bring up a good point. the people of Israel are just like any population. They're not all in lockstep. They've got their left, they got their right, they've got their far right. Those are, you've seen the pictures of like the super orthodox guys spitting on people. I mean, that happens, but it's like this really fringe far right orthodoxy that no one likes, and they're the equivalent of like flat earthers. I mean, these are the ones that say they're against Zionism because they say it's wrong what we're doing. We're supposed to wait for God to deliver Israel to us. That's that sect. And they're kind of like, I asked while I was just out there recently about that. And they said, no, they exist. It's not like mainstream, but, they were a pain in the ass, and no one likes them, but they've got a pulse on like the kind of like outlier areas. But they'd be the equivalent of like our flat earthers, and I bring that up because a lot of people will take any Jewish name, especially our fringe right. If someone has a Jewish last name, they automatically paint the entire country and every Jew on earth with that brush. Okay. Which is ridiculous. That'd be like saying every Irish person is affiliated with the, Irish mafia of Boston because of Whitey Bulger. It's the same thing. But they also do another thing too. I've noticed the manipulation of the media. You notice you rarely see Tel Aviv. You rarely see, the 90% of the country that is as advanced, if not more advanced, than most cities in the United States. You don't see that. You only ever see Gaza or troops or like, the West, Judea and Samaria, which the globalists call the West Bank. But you never see like Tel Aviv or the amazing medical industry they have there. And no Twitter guy who tried to call me on this, we don't actually contribute anything to their medical, So I think we do 3.8 billion in, pre-marked aid, and I think it costs like 3.8 billion, even though we give 17.8 billion to Ukraine, 1.9 billion to Egypt, and 3.8 billion, where a lot of people say that's our land-based aircraft carrier. So if you think about it, we got, right now I counted 29 U.S. Air Force planes sitting at Tel Aviv Ben Gurion Airport, which is pissing a lot of the, commuters off because it shut down like entire runways for us. But if that's the case, if there are land-based aircraft carrier, which is very helpful, it costs about 4.7 billion to maintain a carrier group for a year. And if it's costing us 3.8 billion to have a land-based secure carrier on land, that being Israel, I'll take it. Anyways, I digress. I'm getting too tired. I should probably call it a night. My nickname was Detective Halverson. My spouse gave it to me because I found out about his lies early on in a relationship. But always, my spouse gave it to me because I found out about his lies. You found out about your spouse's lies? Give me a yes or no. I just want to make sure I got my characters in the story correct. If you go to Lizzie's house, I hope. Wait, I hear you. I will go to Lizzie's house. I'll take pictures. You can use them. Just credit me. I'll watermark them. On your earlier one though, Nettie. Now I'm being gossipy and curious, but my nickname was Detective Halverson. My spouse gave it to me because I found about his lies early on in our relationship, but always accidentally. Are you talking when you say his lies? Are you talking about your spouse's lies? Yes. Yeah, man. Look, I will say this. He was a compulsive liar. Okay. Some spouses have a really good sense for their spouse, like big time. It's kind of like, some people just have that sixth sense. Like, I never lie to Naomi, not that I want to. But even if I did, I think she'd know. And I'm a good liar. I was trained to lie. I'm one of the best liars in the world. I cannot lie to that woman. She will, She's a great detective. I mean, she's an investigative journalist, but it's just like our house, because we're both great detectives. It's so funny because like I'll say something and I'm being honest, but like she's already had it in her head that something else is going on. Like, I go to get milk and then I stop off to get her a gift, right? Or I stop off to go fishing. And then I'm home like an hour later than she expected me to be. And she doesn't really care where I go, she just worries about me. And, but then she'll say, why did it take you so long? And I'll say, well, sometimes it takes long. Then she goes, I'm like, all right, I went fishing. You got me. She's like, I knew it and then she tells me all her methods and how she figured it out. I said, I wasn't going to lie to you. You just didn't give me a chance to give you the whole truth. So what an interesting live chat. No, this is my typical live chat. Just rambling on, but thanks for sharing with that. I'm sorry that happened to you, by the way, but it's been my experience. Like when I started doing private eye work back in like 2000, I did it like 2013. I had a whole big business doing it. My first cases were cheating spouse cases. And it was interesting because most of my clients were women, and a lot of times they come up to me and they're like, my ex-husband, I want to find out if he was cheating on me. I'm like, well, if he's your ex-husband, why does it matter? Because you're already divorced and it won't change that. Or if they're already separated and they filed for divorce, it doesn't matter if you catch them cheating. Or if it's a no-fault state where like it doesn't matter if they're cheating, you don't need evidence to divorce. It's no fault. So they would just want to know. And what's interesting is even when I found out the worst news, and we were good, we were committed to getting these videos, and it's rare that you catch someone, in bed, as you're, doing the long view shots, like you see in the movies. But every now and then people would just do things that you couldn't believe they're doing. I remember Raphael, one of my lead guys, great guy, he sat in the back of his Outback with the tinted windows for like 2 hours because he followed the target to this mountain bike place, and then they went into a covered garage, and he's like sweating so much that he went down to his skivvies while he's waiting, and he had all the cameras set up, and he parked right across from their car. And you rarely get evidence like this, but they come back from their bike ride. It's the wife and her extramarital affair guy, and that's all we had. It was like, okay, he's moving the bikes, and I'm watching, and I go, okay, I see them biking together. This is enough to prove infidelity. And then they let the bikes fall on the ground. Rafa's like 10 feet away, and you could hear on the video like his other cameras going click, 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 click. They start making out. They open up the back of the SUV, and they go right to town right there. Eventually pulling it shut, but clothes were coming off and everything before they pulled it shut. So that was an open and shut case. And the client, believe it or not, was not mad. They were relieved. It gave them some sort of peace. And I think that peace came from the transparency of the situation. So I think a lot of times the not knowing is worse than the knowing. I think that's what drives a lot of people to insanity on things like the Epstein files and everything, is the not knowing. Being so close, but the not knowing. You know something's there, but you just don't have it 100%. And that might always be the case with cases like that. That's the case with most cases. But every now and then, if you get something that's, a smoking gun, it's rare, but you get it. And on that note, great episode. Enjoyed chatting with you guys. Thanks for staying up with me. Just keep digging. You're not going to get transparency on every case, but you know what? The ones you do get transparency on, you'll be better for it. So keep on investigating everything. And to all of you, have a great night. Thanks for joining me. I will be back again either this weekend or early next week with another episode. And by the way, sending your leads. I'd love to hear what you'd like me to cover. Lizzie Borden's on the list. And thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. Make sure you check out all of our shows on dailyclout.io. And there for leads, go and send me an email. Just put the title of the show. Please make sure you subscribe to my Substack. This one here, that The Devil is in the Sample, I tore apart that AP Nork survey that said Israeli or Jewish Americans like Mandami better than Netanyahu. Totally eviscerated that. Total BS. Spoiler alert, pretty much all the people they interviewed had just turned 18, and I proved it. So yeah, check that out. Did I cover everything here? And then check out our other shows on dailyclout.io, and yeah, make sure you go to the Substack and subscribe. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So you see it cruising down there. Subscribe. If, paid subscriptions keep me writing and they make me not have to go in the field, which keeps me from writing. Times are tough. Just a good subscription. There's free subscriptions available. You just can't comment with a free subscription, but it's always appreciated, and you can always share that out with other people and get it out there. And yeah. And I'll try to get this episode on Substack too with more details. I'm not really sure what topic we cover, but we'll get there. All right, guys, have a great night, and great to see you all. And get outside tomorrow. Enjoy yourselves. Take a day off, and I'll talk to you soon. It's been Brian O'Shea with Investigate Everything, and have a wonderful, wonderful night.